Underground. By Michael. Front matter. This book is dedicated to the resilient spirits who dwell in the shadows, those who carve out existence in the cracks of our societal structures, the unsung heroes of the forgotten corners, the architects of their own realities within the unforgiving embrace of the unseen. It is for those who find solace in the quiet strength of community forged in adversity, a kinship born not of privilege, but of shared struggle and survival. This is for the forgotten engineers who built the foundations beneath our feet, the artisans who crafted beauty from discarded materials, the dreamers who found hope in the darkness, the lovers who found comfort in each other's arms during the longest nights, and the mothers who nursed their children to sleep amidst the whispers of the earth. It is a testament to their unwavering commitment, their boundless resourcefulness, their capacity for love in the face of relentless hardship. This dedication also extends to the forgotten stories, those narratives left untold, the voices unheard, the histories silenced. These are the tales that resonate within the dark, echoing chambers of the underground, tales of resilience, loss, ingenuity, and the search for meaning amidst the debris of our world. It is a tribute to their hidden strength, their tenacious spirit, and their unsung contribution to the complex tapestry of humanity. For all those who have ever felt the sting of societal rejection, the crushing weight of exclusion, the gnawing loneliness of isolation, this book is for you. May it offer a small measure of understanding, a glimpse into the strength that can be found in the darkest of places, and a reminder that even in the deepest shadows, hope can take root and blossom. It is also dedicated to the memory of those who have explored the labyrinthine depths of urban spaces, those who have sought out the hidden histories beneath our feet, those who have dared to challenge the established narratives and uncover the stories that lie just beyond the gaze of the conventional. Your courage inspires me. Your curiosity fuels this work. Your dedication serves as a reminder of the crucial role of exploration and discovery in unveiling the forgotten aspects of our shared history. Finally, this work is dedicated to all those who seek to understand the complexities of human nature, the intricate workings of society, and the capacity for both great cruelty and astonishing kindness that lies within the human heart. May this exploration into the hidden depths leave you with a deeper understanding of the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of community. Chapter 1. Descent. The air hung thick and heavy, a miasma of damp earth and decay that clung to Elias's throat like a shroud. He descended, the narrow shaft a claustrophobic tunnel leading into the unknown. Each footfall echoed, amplified in the oppressive silence, a stark counterpoint to the rhythmic drip, drip, drip of water from the unseen crevices above. The beam of his headlamp cut a swath through the darkness, revealing rough-hewn walls, slick with moisture, and the uneven, treacherous path beneath his boots. This wasn't a planned descent. This was a desperate plunge into the abyss, a flight from a life that had become unbearable. Elias, once a celebrated engineer, a man whose designs had graced city skylines, was now a pariah, a ghost haunting the edges of a society that had abruptly rejected him. The whispers had started subtly, then escalated into a roar of condemnation. A catastrophic bridge collapse, a project he'd overseen, had cost lives, and though investigations cleared him of direct culpability, the stain of public distrust clung to him like the dampness of the tunnel walls. He had lost his job, his reputation, his family, his life, effectively. They had turned their backs, not on a criminal, but on a man broken by grief and the weight of collective blame. He had nothing left except the gnawing emptiness inside, the suffocating silence of his own despair. The descent was a physical manifestation of his inner turmoil. Each step was a surrender, a letting go of the life he'd known, a descent into a darkness both literal and metaphorical. He felt the cold seep into his bones, a chilling reminder of the isolation he had chosen, or rather, that had been forced upon him. The air grew thinner, the silence deeper, the darkness more absolute. It was a descent into hell, a fitting metaphor for his state of mind. He finally reached the bottom, a cavernous space that opened up before him. The air, though still damp, was less suffocating, a subtle difference that offered a sliver of hope. Flickering oil lamps cast an ethereal glow on the rough-hewn walls and the figures huddled in the dim light. They were the inhabitants of this subterranean world, a community carved from the earth itself, living off the grid, invisible to the surface. They were outcasts, like him, refugees from a world that had cast them aside. Their initial interactions were fraught with tension. Their eyes, hardened by years of living in this unforgiving environment, scrutinized him with suspicion. Their words, cautious and clipped, were laced with an unspoken distrust. They didn't ask about his past, they didn't offer comfort. They simply observed, assessing his potential threat, measuring his worth to their fragile society. He was an intruder, a potential disruptor of their precarious balance. He understood their apprehension, he felt the same towards them. This wasn't a welcoming committee. He was an anomaly, an outsider stumbling into their hidden realm. The silence in their greeting was more chilling than any direct hostility. Their movements were economical, efficient, the actions of people who had learned to conserve every bit of energy, every ounce of resource. He saw the fear in their eyes, the weariness in their posture. They were hardened, battle-scarred, but there was a flicker of something else, something akin to hope, that briefly caught his eye. He felt the weight of societal rejection bearing down on him, heavier than the damp earth pressing against his shoulders. The surface world, with its gleaming towers and promises of progress, had spat him out, deemed him expendable. But here, in this bleak, subterranean refuge, he sensed a different kind of life, a life built not on ambition and competition, but on resilience and cooperation. The very air seemed to resonate with the unspoken understanding of their shared plight, their mutual need to survive. It was a harsh existence, devoid of many comforts, yet it held the potential for something he hadn't found on the surface, belonging. A strange, fragile, underground belonging. The echoes of his past still haunted him, the accusations, the loss, the crushing weight of responsibility. He could almost hear the whispers of the city above, a constant reminder of his failure, of the life he'd lost. But the dripping water in the tunnels, the faint smell of damp earth, the dim light of the oil lamps, somehow provided a strange, unsettling comfort. This wasn't paradise, but it was a refuge, a place where he might, just might, find a measure of peace. A place where the judgment of the surface world couldn't reach him. He tried to speak, to introduce himself, but the words caught in his throat, choked by the weight of his past and the uncertainty of his future. He was a stranger in a strange land, a newcomer in a society that operated on its own unwritten rules. He was a ghost, haunting the edges of this hidden world, yet he felt, despite the overwhelming sense of rejection and loss, a flicker of hope. Perhaps, in this unlikely sanctuary, he could begin to rebuild his life, to find a place, however small, where he belonged. Perhaps, in this desolate underworld, he could finally find redemption. The thought, faint as the flickering lamplight, was a lifeline in the suffocating darkness. The journey was far from over, but for the first time since his descent, he felt a glimmer of something approaching acceptance. The air still hung heavy with the stench of the earth and decay, but it no longer seemed quite so oppressive. He was here, and for now, at least, that was enough. Anya emerged from the shadows as if summoned by the very darkness itself. She was a silhouette at first, a fleeting movement in the periphery of his vision, then a figure solidifying in the flickering lamplight. She was tall and lean, her movements fluid and economical, like a predator moving through its territory. Her eyes, dark and intense, held a depth that hinted at years spent navigating this subterranean world, years of hardship and resilience etched onto her face. She wore layers of worn, practical clothing, the fabric stained and patched, a testament to the harsh realities of her existence. There was a strength about her, a quiet determination that resonated even in the oppressive silence of the cavern. She didn't speak immediately, didn't offer a greeting, a smile, or even a nod of acknowledgement. She simply stood there, observing him, her gaze unwavering, assessing, dissecting. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating, broken only by the rhythmic drip of water from the unseen crevices above. It was a silent interrogation, a test of his mettle, his resolve. He could feel her scrutiny, a palpable pressure that made him shift uncomfortably on his feet. Finally, she spoke, her voice a low, husky murmur that seemed to emanate from the very earth itself. "You're new," she stated, the words devoid of warmth, or any hint of welcome. Her tone was observational, clinical, lacking the casual pleasantries of surface dwellers. Elias swallowed, his throat suddenly dry. Yes, he managed, his voice a barely audible whisper. I am. He felt the weight of his past pressing down on him, the burden of his shattered reputation of physical presence, suffocating him. He wanted to explain, to justify his presence, but the words eluded him. He knew that any explanation would fall flat, would be met with suspicion, with distrust. Anya didn't press him. She simply nodded, a slight inclination of her head, a gesture that acknowledged his response without offering any further invitation to elaborate. She turned and began to move deeper into the cavern, her form disappearing into the labyrinthine network of tunnels that snaked off into the darkness. He hesitated for a moment, his instincts urging him to retreat, to disappear back into the shadows from which he had emerged. But the gnawing emptiness inside him, the desolate void that had consumed him since his fall from grace, drove him forward. He followed her. The tunnels were a complex network of interconnecting passages, a subterranean city carved out of the earth. The walls were rough-hewn, damp and cold, the air thick with the smell of damp earth and something else, a faint, almost imperceptible metallic tang that hinted at the presence of something else down here, some other secret or element that made this subterranean world uniquely itself. Flickering oil lamps cast a dim, ethereal glow, illuminating only small sections of the tunnels at a time, leaving the rest shrouded in an oppressive, impenetrable darkness. The air was thick, heavy with moisture, clinging to his skin like a second layer of clothing. Each step was a test, a negotiation with the treacherous ground beneath his feet. Anya moved with an uncanny familiarity with the tunnels, her steps sure, her pace unhurried. She seemed to know every twist and turn, every hidden passage, every potential hazard. He struggled to keep up, his movements clumsy and awkward, his boots slipping on the damp earth. He stumbled occasionally, the sharp sting of his fall only exacerbating the sense of his isolation and helplessness. As they moved deeper into the network, Anya began to speak, her voice a low hum against the backdrop of the dripping water and the echoing silence. She explained the intricate social structure of the underground community, the unwritten rules, the hierarchies, the responsibilities. It was a complex society, with its own customs and traditions, its own internal logic, built on necessity, resilience, and an unspoken code of survival. They had their own systems of resource management, their own methods of defense, their own internal conflicts and resolutions. It was a society built on interdependence, each member reliant on the others for survival. She introduced him to other members of the community, individuals as hardened and resilient as she was. Their faces were etched with lines of hardship, their eyes held the gleam of defiance, their movements were precise, economical, the actions of people who had learned to make every movement count. They were a mix of engineers, doctors, teachers, and laborers, all refugees from a world that had rejected them. There were former academics, entrepreneurs, and artists, all forced to reinvent themselves in this harsh environment. They were a tapestry of forgotten talents and untapped potential, a society forged in the crucible of adversity. Anya tested him subtly, pushing him to his limits, both physically and mentally. She made him participate in the daily tasks of the community, making him contribute his share to the collective survival, forcing him to prove his worth. She observed his reactions, his stamina, his willingness to cooperate. She questioned him about his past, not out of curiosity, but out of necessity. She needed to know if he was a threat, if he would disrupt the delicate balance of their existence. The subterranean world was not just a refuge, it was a crucible, testing his resolve, pushing him beyond his limits. The challenges were relentless. The cold, the dampness, the constant threat of collapse, the ever-present fear of discovery. Yet, in this harsh environment, he found something he hadn't anticipated, a sense of purpose, a feeling of belonging. He was still haunted by his past, still burdened by the weight of his failures. But in this hidden world, surrounded by others who had faced their own share of adversity, he began to find a measure of redemption. He was no longer a pariah, a ghost haunting the edges of society. He was a member of a community, a part of something larger than himself, contributing to the collective struggle for survival. The flickering lamplight revealed the dampness of the walls, the intricate network of tunnels, the resourcefulness of the community, their ingenuity in creating a sustainable existence in this seemingly impossible environment. Anya, the woman who had emerged from the shadows, was now a beacon of hope, a guide in this underworld, someone who had accepted him, not for who he once was, but for who he could become. The journey was far from over, the challenges were immense. But for the first time in a long time, Elias felt a glimmer of hope, a flicker of light in the oppressive darkness of his subterranean existence. The descent was far from complete, but he had found a foothold, a place to begin to rebuild, to reclaim his life, to find, unexpectedly, solace in this unlikely sanctuary. The darkness still held secrets, but the presence of Anya and the community, for now, had tempered the chilling solitude. The air hung heavy with the scent of roasted roots and something else, a faint, almost sweet aroma that Elias couldn't quite place. It was a smell that spoke of scarcity, of making the most of limited resources, a smell that was both strangely comforting and deeply unsettling. Anya led him to a cavern larger than the others they had passed, a space that seemed to have been meticulously carved and shaped to accommodate a makeshift hearth. A fire, small but fiercely bright, flickered in the center, casting dancing shadows on the rough-hewn walls. Around the fire, huddled on rough-hewn benches and scattered on the ground, sat other members of the community. They looked up as he and Anya approached, their gazes assessing, cautious but not hostile. Anya introduced him, her voice a quiet murmur that carried surprisingly well in the confined space. There was a hesitation, a subtle exchange of glances between the others before a gruff but not unfriendly nod of acknowledgement. No one smiled, not outwardly, but there was a flicker of something in their eyes, curiosity, perhaps, or even a cautious form of acceptance. Elias felt a surge of relief, a tiny crack in the wall of his isolation. A shared meal was offered, a simple affair of roasted roots and a type of tough, fibrous fungi that tasted surprisingly earthy and satisfying. The food was meager, clearly rationed, but it was shared with a generosity that belied the harshness of their surroundings. Elias ate slowly, carefully, aware of the unspoken rules of etiquette, the need to demonstrate respect for their customs and their resources. He noticed the way they ate, with quiet intensity, savoring each bite as if it were a precious jewel. There was no wasted motion, no unnecessary conversation, only the quiet clinking of stone bowls and the occasional crackling of the fire. It was a silent testament to their resilience, their adaptability, their acceptance of the realities of their existence. The conversation, when it did emerge, was cautious at first, hesitant, filled with pauses and unspoken questions. They spoke of the tunnels, of the challenges of maintaining their underground city, of the constant vigilance required to avoid detection. They spoke of their past lives, fragments of memories shared with a guarded reluctance, a recognition that the past was a dangerous place, a source of both pain and vulnerability. Elias listened, absorbing their stories, hearing echoes of his own experiences in their narratives, finding a strange solace in their shared trauma, their shared resilience. He learned about their complex system of resource management, their ingenious methods of water purification, their sophisticated system of ventilation that kept the air breathable despite the lack of natural airflow. It was a testament to their ingenuity, their adaptability, their ability to create a functioning society in the face of almost insurmountable odds. The close quarters of their subterranean existence fostered an unusual intimacy, a sense of shared vulnerability and interdependence. Their living spaces were small, carved from the earth, simple but functional, offering a stark reminder of their dependence on each other. There were no superfluous items, everything served a purpose, everything was carefully rationed and shared. Elias's own cramped space, a small alcove carved into a side passage, felt less like a prison and more like a refuge, a symbol of his gradual integration into the community. Over the following weeks, Elias found himself gradually drawn into the rhythms of their lives. He participated in the daily tasks, the maintenance of the ventilation systems, the cultivation of the fungi, the gathering of water from subterranean springs. He learned their techniques, their methods, their unspoken rules. He discovered hidden talents he never knew he possessed, skills that had lain dormant, untapped, until now. He helped repair damaged sections of the tunnels, contributing his engineering knowledge to bolster the resilience of their community's infrastructure. He also helped to teach, sharing his understanding of mathematics and physics with the younger members of the group, nurturing new minds in the face of adversity. His hands, once accustomed to the sleek surfaces of technology, now became adept at handling rough-hewn tools, at feeling the texture of the earth, at creating something practical and enduring in this stark environment. It was hard work, physically demanding, but it was also deeply satisfying. The physical exertion helped clear his head, easing the mental burden of his past. The sense of purpose, of contributing something meaningful, was a balm to his wounded soul. The shared hardships, the shared triumphs, the shared vulnerabilities, these were the threads that began to weave a strong fabric of trust and belonging. There were still moments of suspicion, of cautious observation, of unspoken tests. But there was also laughter, a quiet, understated humor born of their shared adversity, a recognition of their resilience and their unwavering determination to survive. They shared stories, not just of survival, but of loss, of grief, of the human capacity to find joy and hope even in the darkest of circumstances. One evening, sitting around the fire, listening to the stories of others, Elias felt a profound sense of connection, a belonging he had never thought possible. He had descended into darkness, into a hidden world carved from the earth, a world of hardship and uncertainty. But in this darkness, he had found something precious, something unexpected, a community, a sense of purpose, a place to call home. The scars of his past remained, but they no longer defined him. He was not just a refugee from the surface world, a ghost haunting the edges of society. He was a member, a contributor, a part of something larger than himself, something enduring, something profoundly human. The descent had been harrowing, the path was uncertain, but he had finally found his footing, his place in this hidden, resilient community. He was no longer alone. The air, thick with the scent of roasted roots and damp earth, held a new note, a faint, almost sweet musk that mingled with the earthy aroma. This time, it was undeniably the scent of something alive, something different. Anya, sensing Elias's curiosity, gestured towards a side tunnel, its entrance veiled by a thick woven tapestry of fungal strands. "The nursery," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the low hum of the ventilation system. He followed her, his heart quickening with a mixture of apprehension and fascination. The tunnel opened into a surprisingly spacious cavern, its walls adorned with shelves and hanging baskets crafted from intricately woven vines and repurposed metal. The air here was warmer, damper, and alive with a subtle rustling and chirping. This was no ordinary storage area, it was a menagerie unlike any Elias had ever encountered. The cavern was bathed in a soft, ethereal glow. Initially, he assumed it was some ingenious bioluminescent fungus, but a closer look revealed the source. Thousands of tiny insects, no bigger than his thumbnail, clinging to the walls and ceilings. Their bodies shimmered with an otherworldly luminescence, a soft, pulsating light that illuminated the space with a dreamlike quality. Anya explained that these were glowflies, a species adapted to thrive in the near-total darkness of the tunnels. They weren't simply decorative, they provided a vital source of light, enabling the community to work and navigate even in the deepest recesses of their underground city. More importantly, their larvae were a significant part of their protein diet. Further into the cavern, in carefully constructed cages made of woven reeds and polished stones, lived several families of unusually large rodents. These weren't your common rats. These creatures were sleek, almost feline in their movements, with unusually large eyes that gleamed in the dim light. Anya introduced them as shadow runners, a breed genetically modified centuries ago by a forgotten scientist whose work had been preserved and adapted within the community. They were remarkably intelligent, capable of navigating the intricate network of tunnels with astonishing ease, and they were incredibly prolific breeders. They weren't just a source of food, they also aided in the transportation of goods and supplies throughout the underground city. But it wasn't just the glowflies and shadow runners. Nestled amongst the shelves, in tiny terrariums fashioned from repurposed glass bottles and containers, were other creatures, strange, adapted forms of life that seemed to defy conventional understanding. One terrarium housed a colony of what appeared to be miniature, bioluminescent spiders, their webs glowing with a faint green light. Their silk, Anya explained, was stronger than any synthetic material, used to create incredibly durable clothing and even rudimentary medical sutures. Another terrarium contained a type of cave salamander, its skin a deep, almost iridescent black, possessing a surprisingly high resistance to radiation, a byproduct of their subterranean environment, a feature that was crucial to their survival. The cavern was alive with the sounds and smells of these unusual creatures. The air buzzed with the quiet hum of the glowflies, the soft scuttling of the shadow runners, the gentle chirping of some unseen insect. There was a constant, underlying energy, a vibrant sense of life that contrasted sharply with the somber mood of the main communal areas. It was a testament to the community's ingenuity, their capacity for adaptation, and their unwavering determination to create and nurture life in the face of seemingly impossible odds. Elias watched as a young girl, no older than 10, gently cleaned a shadow runner's cage. Her movements were precise, deliberate, showing a deep understanding of the creature's needs and habits. The girl looked up, her eyes meeting Elias's. She didn't smile, but there was a quiet confidence in her gaze, a sense of responsibility that belied her age. She was not just caring for an animal, she was a vital part of the delicate ecosystem that sustained their underground world. The care given to these creatures wasn't simply about sustenance, it was about maintaining a balance. The glowflies provided light and protein, the shadow runners provided transportation and food, the salamanders offered unique medical properties, and the spiders contributed to the community's resources. This wasn't simply a collection of unusual pets, it was a meticulously managed ecosystem, a reflection of the community's resilience, adaptability, and deep understanding of the interconnectedness of all living things. It was a living testament to the will to survive, a testament woven into the very fabric of their subterranean existence. As Elias observed this vibrant, interconnected ecosystem, he noticed a subtle shift in the dynamic within the community. The initial cautiousness had begun to melt away, replaced by a shared sense of pride and accomplishment. The tending to their unusual pets wasn't just a task, it was a communal activity, a shared responsibility that fostered a deeper sense of unity and interdependence. The care and nurturing extended beyond the practical aspects of survival. These creatures were companions, sources of comfort and emotional support in a harsh and unforgiving environment. Elias saw a young man, his face etched with lines of worry and fatigue, gently stroking the smooth fur of a shadow runner. The act was simple, yet it conveyed a profound sense of connection, a quiet solace in the midst of their challenging lives. The unusual pets were more than just sources of sustenance, they were symbols of hope, resilience, and the enduring human capacity to find beauty and connection even in the bleakest of circumstances. Their existence, and the community's dedication to their care, served as a powerful reminder of the resilience of life, its ability to adapt and thrive even in the most inhospitable environments. The glowfly's luminescence was not simply light, it was a symbol of the community's enduring spirit. The shadow runner's agility was not just about transportation, it was a symbol of their ability to navigate the complexities of their subterranean world. And the salamanders' resilience was not just about medical properties, it was a symbol of the community's own capacity for survival. Elias, who had arrived feeling isolated and lost, began to understand that this wasn't simply a survival story. It was a story of creation, a story of building a life, a society, a community, out of the very earth they inhabited. He realized that the unusual pets were not just animals, they were integral parts of this vibrant, resilient society, a living testament to the capacity of humans to adapt, to create, and to find hope even in the deepest darkness. They were, in a way, a reflection of the community itself, strange, beautiful, tenacious, and deeply connected. The pets were a symbol of the community's ingenuity, their ability to find beauty and purpose in their challenging existence. Their care demonstrated the community's deep understanding of the interconnectedness of life, and their unwavering determination to create a life of dignity and purpose in their subterranean world. The pets were, in a very real sense, family. The shared responsibility of caring for these unusual creatures forged a deeper bond amongst the community members. The daily tasks, the shared knowledge, the mutual support, these all contributed to a sense of collective purpose and belonging. The pets weren't just animals, they were the embodiment of the community's spirit, their ability to adapt, create, and persevere. The pets were a testament to the community's resilience, a reminder that even in the darkest of circumstances, life finds a way to not just survive but to thrive. They represented the community's enduring hope and their unwavering determination to create a future where life, in all its unusual forms, could flourish. The nursery was not simply a place to keep animals, it was a symbol of hope, a testament to their ingenuity, and a powerful reflection of their unbreakable spirit. It was a vibrant, pulsating heart at the center of their subterranean city, a beacon of light in the darkness. It was a place where life, in all its extraordinary and unexpected forms, found a way to not just survive, but to thrive. It was a symbol of the unconventional family that they had become, a family bound not by blood, but by a shared resilience, a shared determination, and a shared love for the unusual creatures that had become an integral part of their subterranean lives. It was a testament to their capacity to create life, to nurture life, and to find solace and companionship in the most unexpected of places. It was a place where life, in all its unpredictable and wondrous forms, continued to bloom in the heart of the earth. The rhythmic drip of water from a fractured pipe was the only sound for a long moment after Elias left the nursery. Anya stood silently, her gaze fixed on a point in the darkness beyond the cavern's entrance. The vibrant life within the nursery seemed to contrast starkly with the quiet intensity of her expression. The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken concerns. Then, a soft sigh escaped her lips, and she spoke, her voice low and hesitant. "We have visitors," she said, the words hanging in the air like a fragile promise. Elias frowned, his mind still reeling from the strange beauty of the nursery. Visitors. In this hidden city, every contact from the surface world held a potential threat. "From the surface?" he asked, a knot tightening in his stomach. Anya nodded. "A messenger. He comes infrequently, but he comes. He usually delivers some scraps, old newspapers, some rations if he can spare it. News, mostly." She hesitated, then added, "This time, it's different." The messenger arrived later that day, a gaunt figure cloaked in worn, gray fabric, his face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. He moved with the cautious grace of a creature long accustomed to the shadows. He carried a battered satchel, its contents unknown, but clearly weighty. He spoke little, his words terse and clipped, offering a chilling portrait of a world ravaged by environmental collapse and societal upheaval. The messenger's report painted a grim picture of the surface. A devastating series of storms had battered the remaining infrastructure, leaving much of the world uninhabitable. The once powerful governments had crumbled, replaced by warring factions vying for control over dwindling resources. Food was scarce, clean water even rarer. The air was thick with pollution, and disease ran rampant. He spoke of vast areas submerged under rising tides, cities reduced to rubble, and a pervasive sense of despair. The very air above seemed to be poisoned. Yet, amidst the devastation, the messenger hinted at something else, something that ignited a flicker of hope amidst the bleakness. He spoke of a newly discovered, relatively untouched region, rich in geothermal energy and untouched by the worst of the storms. A region where resources, though depleted, still existed, fertile land, minerals, clean water sources shielded from the worst of the surface world's pollution. The news sparked a fervent debate within the community. The discovery of these resources offered a tantalizing prospect, a chance to improve their living conditions, to alleviate the constant struggle for survival. But it also presented a terrifying risk. Contact with the surface, even at a distance, brought with it the potential for discovery, for conflict, for the shattering of their carefully constructed sanctuary. The messenger's stories were stark reminders of the brutality and desperation that reigned above. Some, led by a pragmatic elder named Theron, argued for cautious exploration. They pointed out the critical need for resources and the potential for a better future, even if it meant risking exposure. They emphasized the dwindling food supplies and the ever-present threat of disease, a creeping darkness in their subterranean world. They spoke of the children, of their future, of their right to a life beyond the confines of the tunnels. Others, led by Anya, voiced strong reservations. They recalled the horrors the messenger described, the violence, the desperation, and the pervasive mistrust that had overtaken the surface world. They argued that their secluded existence, however harsh, offered a measure of safety, a sanctuary from the chaos above. They spoke of the delicate balance they had painstakingly established within their community, a balance that could easily be shattered by contact with the outside world. Their voices echoed a deep-seated fear of the unknown and the potential for betrayal. The debate raged for days, the air thick with tension. Every word carried the weight of life and death decisions, the fate of their unique community hanging in the balance. Arguments were fierce but respectful, a testament to the deep bonds and shared history that held the community together. They understood the gravity of the situation, knowing that their decision would determine the future of generations to come. The glowflies pulsed with a softer light, reflecting the uncertainty in the hearts of the inhabitants. The usual comforting hum of the ventilation system seemed less reassuring, more like a mechanical heartbeat echoing their unease. The discussions grew increasingly heated, splintering the community into factions with sharply divergent opinions. Each side presented compelling arguments, highlighting the potential benefits and dangers of venturing to the surface. The younger generation, eager for change and less burdened by the memories of the surface's past, tended to support Theron's proposal. The older members, scarred by past traumas and wary of the unknown, sided with Anya. Even Elias found himself torn, his initial optimism waning in the face of the messenger's horrifying tales. The moral dilemma was stark: survival versus safety, progress versus preservation. Could they risk their hard-won safety for the possibility of a better future? Was the potential for progress worth the risk of exposing their community to the brutal realities of the surface world? The debate illuminated the deep-seated values of this unique society, their resilience, and their capacity for both hope and fear. It was a testament to their complex and evolving nature, reflecting their adaptability and resilience in the face of extreme challenges. Each voice held weight, reflecting a different perspective, a different understanding of the sacrifices they might have to make. The suspense mounted as the community grappled with this critical decision. The fate of their underground city, their very existence, hung precariously in the balance. The whispers of the surface, both promising and threatening, echoed through the tunnels, adding a layer of anxiety to their already precarious existence. The debate wasn't merely about resources or safety, it was a struggle for their collective soul, a search for a future that could reconcile their past with their hopes. The question lingered, unanswered, as the community prepared to make a choice that could determine their destiny. The silence was broken only by the relentless drip of water, a constant reminder of the unrelenting forces that shaped their underground world. The fate of their hidden city hung in the balance, a fragile hope trembling against a backdrop of uncertainty and fear. Chapter 2: Fractured Bonds. The initial optimism surrounding the messenger's report of the untouched region had quickly evaporated, leaving behind a residue of bitter disagreement. The communal harmony, once a defining characteristic of their subterranean existence, had fractured. The rhythmic drip of water, once a comforting constant, now seemed a mocking metronome marking the escalating tension. The glowflies, usually a source of soft, ethereal beauty, pulsed with a nervous, erratic rhythm, reflecting the unsettled hearts of the inhabitants. The arguments, initially respectful and measured, had devolved into heated exchanges, echoing through the tunnels, each word carrying the weight of desperation and fear. The divisions were stark: those who clung to the fragile safety of their isolation, and those who yearned for the possibility of a better future, even if it meant risking everything. Anya, a staunch advocate for preserving their secluded existence, found herself increasingly isolated. Her pleas for caution, initially met with thoughtful consideration, were now dismissed as fear-mongering by the faction supporting Theron. Theron, a shrewd and pragmatic leader, argued that their current situation was unsustainable. The dwindling food supplies, the rising incidence of illness, and the ever-present threat of cave-ins were undeniable realities. He painted a vivid picture of a future where their children would inherit a life even harsher than their own, a life choked by scarcity and despair. His supporters, largely comprised of the younger generation, saw Theron as a beacon of hope, someone who dared to envision a better life beyond the confines of their underground world. They were tired of the limitations, the constant rationing, the suffocating sense of confinement. They saw the risk as an investment in their future, a chance to break free from the cyclical despair of their present existence. The disagreements weren't merely philosophical, they were deeply personal, fueled by past traumas and present anxieties. Memories of the surface world, once shared as cautionary tales, now became weapons in the ongoing conflict. The older generation, haunted by the horrors they had escaped, viewed Theron's plan as reckless, a gamble that could undo everything they had painstakingly built. They recalled loved ones lost, homes destroyed, and a world consumed by chaos. They spoke of the psychological toll of their isolated existence, the constant threat of disease, and the agonizing loss of loved ones. Their arguments centered around the hard-won peace and the precarious balance they had managed to maintain. They argued that risking this fragile balance could plunge them into far greater chaos. The arguments extended beyond the central debate about surface contact. They bled into every aspect of their lives, poisoning even the most mundane interactions. The allocation of resources, once a matter of simple cooperation, became a source of contention, with accusations of favoritism and hoarding poisoning the communal spirit. Sharing, once a cornerstone of their survival, now felt transactional, burdened by suspicion and mistrust. The carefully cultivated system of mutual support began to unravel, replaced by a growing sense of self-preservation. The once vibrant communal spaces, usually alive with laughter and shared stories, became eerily quiet, punctuated only by hushed whispers and the occasional tense exchange. Even the nursery, previously a sanctuary of warmth and light, reflected the growing divisions, its cheerful decorations seeming jarring against the backdrop of simmering resentment. The children, initially oblivious to the tensions, began to sense the change, their innocent games replaced by uneasy silences and withdrawn behavior. The normally bustling communal kitchen, the heart of their community, now felt like a battlefield. The preparation of meals, once a shared act of cooperation, became a source of friction, with accusations of unequal distribution and unfair rationing. The familiar aromas of stews and baked goods, usually a comfort, were now tainted by the bitter taste of mistrust. Even Elias, initially optimistic about the possibility of finding a better life above ground, found himself caught in the crossfire. He witnessed the deepening divisions firsthand, the subtle shifts in alliances, the unspoken resentments simmering beneath the surface. His loyalty was tested, his friendships strained by the diverging viewpoints. He struggled to reconcile his desire for progress with his concern for the well-being of his community, his heart torn between two seemingly irreconcilable paths. The tension was palpable, a thick fog permeating every corner of their underground city. The usual routines, the comforting rhythms of their daily lives, were disrupted. The constant fear of discovery from the surface combined with the internal conflicts created a perfect storm of anxiety. The once harmonious environment now felt claustrophobic, the darkness of the tunnels seemingly mirroring the growing darkness in their hearts. Sleep became elusive, haunted by nightmares of collapse, both literal and metaphorical. The situation threatened to unravel their carefully constructed social fabric. Their community, once a testament to resilience and cooperation, teetered on the brink of disintegration. The survival they had fought so hard to achieve was now threatened not only by the dangers of the outside world but also by the internal divisions that threatened to consume them. The weight of their decision, the burden of choosing between safety and progress, survival and self-destruction, pressed heavily upon them. The very foundation of their society, the bonds of trust and mutual support, had been fractured. The future of their community, once a beacon of hope in a ravaged world, was now uncertain, shrouded in a deepening shadow of doubt and fear. The unrelenting drip of water served as a constant, unsettling reminder of the fragility of their existence, the delicate balance between survival and collapse. The fate of their community hung precariously in the balance, a testament to the destructive power of internal conflict in even the most closely knit societies. The silence in the tunnels was broken only by the drip, drip, drip of water, a morbid soundtrack to their impending decision. The choice was theirs, and the consequences would be profound. The tremor started subtly, a low hum that vibrated through the tunnels, a tremor that felt less like an earthquake and more like a deep, shuddering breath from the earth itself. At first, it was dismissed as another minor shift in the unstable rock formations, a commonplace occurrence in their subterranean world. But then the hum intensified, morphing into a guttural growl, and the ground began to heave, throwing people off their feet. Dust rained down from the ceiling, choking the air and obscuring the already dim light. The rhythmic drip of water, once a comforting constant, now turned into a torrential downpour as cracks spider-webbed across the tunnel walls. Panic erupted, a chaotic wave that crashed over the fragile piece. Shrieks and cries filled the air, mingling with the sounds of collapsing rock and the terrified bleating of their underground livestock. The meticulously constructed tunnels, their sanctuary, were collapsing in on themselves, a brutal reminder of the precariousness of their existence. Elias, caught in the maelstrom, found himself struggling to breathe, his lungs burning from the dust. He fought his way through the chaos, his hands scraping against the rough stone, desperately searching for Anya. He found her amidst a scene of devastation, her face streaked with grime, her eyes wide with terror. She was shielding a group of children, a small island of calm amidst the storm. The sight of her, her unwavering strength in the face of unimaginable fear, steeled his resolve. Together, they guided the children towards a relatively stable section of the tunnel, a small pocket of safety in a world crumbling around them. But the relief was short-lived. The earth continued its relentless assault, threatening to engulf them. The cave-in exposed a new and terrifying reality. Their carefully constructed support systems, their meticulously planned escape routes, their entire defense against the relentless pressure of the earth above were now useless, shattered fragments of a past they could no longer rely on. Their world was shrinking, the boundaries of their existence closing in, the weight of the earth pressing down with suffocating force. The disaster wasn't simply a structural failure, it was a symbolic collapse, reflecting the fracturing of their community, the shattering of their shared dreams and hopes. The aftermath was a scene of devastation. Sections of the tunnels were blocked, separating families and friends. The communal stores, their lifeline, were buried under tons of rubble, their carefully rationed supplies now lost to the earth. The once vibrant glowflies, usually beacons of hope in the darkness, were snuffed out, leaving only the eerie glow of emergency lamps, casting long, distorted shadows that danced with the dust motes in the air. Even the comforting drip of water was gone, replaced by a silence so profound it was almost deafening. The initial shock gave way to a grim determination. The community, fractured though it was, began the arduous task of recovery, digging through rubble, searching for survivors. The lines between the factions blurred as they worked together, driven by a shared instinct for survival. The old divisions, once so bitter and intractable, faded slightly in the face of a common enemy, the unforgiving earth. Theron, Anya, and Elias, despite their conflicting views, found themselves working shoulder to shoulder, their shared experience forging an uneasy truce. The common purpose unified them in a way that their ideological differences never could. But the relief was temporary. The cave-in was only the first blow. Soon, a sickness began to spread, a virulent respiratory infection that swept through the weakened community. The dwindling food supply, already strained by the damage to the storage areas, was further depleted as people fell ill. The once abundant underground spring, their source of fresh water, was contaminated, its waters tainted by the influx of earth and debris. The sick were isolated in a makeshift infirmary, but the resources to treat them were scarce. Desperate measures were taken, experimental remedies concocted from whatever herbs and fungi could be found, their efficacy questionable at best. The death toll climbed steadily, each death a fresh wound on the already broken community. The previously vibrant nursery, a testament to their future, was now shadowed by the fear of losing more children. The infectious disease tested the community's resilience, straining relationships further. Those unaffected were plagued by suspicion, hoarding supplies for themselves and their families, furthering the already precarious division of resources. The physical deterioration mirrored the social disintegration. The tunnels, once meticulously maintained, began to show signs of neglect. The carefully crafted systems of ventilation faltered, causing the air to become thick with dust and the stench of illness and decay. The once clean and well-organized living quarters became squalid, reflecting the escalating desperation and helplessness that permeated the atmosphere. The claustrophobia, always a latent anxiety, now intensified, transforming into a palpable fear of suffocation, both physically and emotionally. The constant threat of further cave-ins combined with the deadly illness created a potent brew of despair. The community was pushed to its limits, forced to make impossible choices. Rationing became more severe, and the once shared meals turned into individual portions, creating new tensions. In the darkest hours, acts of self-preservation eclipsed their earlier ideals of mutual support. The ethics of survival were challenged relentlessly, with accusations of hoarding, stealing, and even sabotage surfacing amidst the chaos and despair. The harsh reality of limited resources made morality a luxury they could no longer afford. Theron, initially seen as a beacon of hope, struggled with the moral complexities of survival, forced to confront his idealistic vision in the brutal crucible of reality. He witnessed firsthand how the extreme circumstances warped the community's moral compass, shattering the bonds of trust and mutual support, exposing the cracks in the foundation of their underground civilization. Anya, though steadfast in her determination to survive, also witnessed the deterioration of their society, leading her to question her own beliefs. The idyllic vision of communal harmony they once held had disintegrated. Elias, caught between the fracturing factions, desperately sought to mediate, to find a way to restore order amidst the chaos. He witnessed the harrowing consequences of their choices, the cost of their survival, not just in material terms but in the erosion of their humanity, the slow death of their shared ideals. The harsh realities of their existence challenged his understanding of human resilience and forced him to reassess the fundamental nature of their community. The constant threat of death, from the earth, from disease, from each other, hung heavy in the air. Each passing day brought fresh challenges, each decision carrying immense weight. The light of hope dimmed, replaced by the chilling realization that their fight for survival might be not only against the harsh realities of their environment but also against their own natures, against the darkness that threatened to consume them from within. The tunnels, once a haven, now echoed with the silence of fear and despair, a testament to the price they were paying for their very existence. The once harmonious sounds of their community were replaced with a chorus of suffering. The air itself seemed to thicken with the weight of loss and the unspoken fear of the future. The air hung heavy, thick with the unspoken grief that clung to the damp tunnel walls like clinging moss. The flickering lamplight cast elongated shadows, dancing grotesquely on the faces of those gathered. Old Man Hemlock was gone. He'd been a fixture in their subterranean world, a repository of forgotten stories and practical wisdom, his gnarled hands always busy mending, repairing, nurturing. His death, a swift succumbing to the insidious respiratory infection, felt like the snapping of a vital thread, unraveling the already fragile fabric of their community. Anya knelt beside the makeshift bier, a rough-hewn wooden pallet draped with a scavenged piece of faded blue tarp. Hemlock's body, small and frail even in death, rested upon it, a stark reminder of their shared mortality. The scent of wood smoke and damp earth mingled with the faint, acrid smell of decay, a constant companion in their underground existence. She traced the lines of his weathered face, remembering his kind eyes, the crinkles around them a testament to a lifetime of smiles and quiet contemplation. His passing felt deeply personal, a violation of the uneasy peace they had managed to maintain. Elias, standing beside her, offered a silent hand, his touch gentle, a gesture of shared sorrow. They had clashed often, their visions for the community often diverging, but Hemlock had always been a bridge between their factions, a reminder of their shared humanity. His absence widened the chasm between them, making their differences seem even more stark. The unspoken grief was a tangible thing, a silent pressure that seemed to crush them. Theron, his face etched with a weariness that went beyond mere physical exhaustion, watched from a distance. He had always been more distant from Hemlock, viewing the old man's quiet contentment with suspicion, deeming it a form of passive resistance against his vision of a stronger, more organized society. Now, however, even Theron felt the weight of loss, a subtle understanding of the community's irreplaceable fabric being slowly torn apart. Hemlock's death was a stark reminder that even those they disagreed with were part of the tapestry of their shared existence. The preparation for Hemlock's farewell was a poignant ritual. There were no elaborate ceremonies, no grand pronouncements. The ritual was a reflection of their constrained reality, a simple act of remembrance. They carefully cleaned his body, a somber act of respect, washing away the dust and grime of their harsh existence. They laid him to rest in a small alcove, a hollow carved into the rock face, a space he had often sat in contemplation. They left tokens beside him, a worn leather-bound book he cherished, a carved wooden bird he had made for Anya's daughter, and a collection of smooth stones, each one representing a cherished memory from his long life. The air was thick with unshed tears, and the silence was heavy, broken only by the occasional sniffle or the soft scrape of a shovel against the rock face. There were no words of comfort, no grand pronouncements of faith or hope. Their sorrow was too raw, too personal. They had always maintained a stoicism, forged in the crucible of their underground existence. Grief wasn't allowed to be a public spectacle, but it was pervasive, shaping their reality with its weight. The children huddled close to their parents, their young eyes wide with a confusion they did not fully understand. Their innocence was a painful contrast to the harsh realities of their subterranean lives, a constant reminder of the fragility of their existence. Their small, quiet sobs were the most heartbreaking sounds, a subtle testament to the life that was lost and their own inherent vulnerability. The death of Old Man Hemlock was more than just the loss of a single life. It was a symbol of the ongoing struggle against the relentless pressure of their environment, a stark reminder of their precarious existence. The weight of his death created a collective silence, a shared sorrow that permeated the air, the silence more pronounced than any outcry of grief. The event had a deeper impact than the initial shock and sadness. It brought to the surface the unspoken fear lurking beneath the veneer of their hard-won resilience. The collective sorrow served as a catalyst, amplifying the existing tensions and vulnerabilities within the community. The loss shook them to their core, highlighting the intense emotional toll of their underground existence, proving that survival was not merely a matter of physical strength or resource management, but a continuous battle against the crushing weight of despair and grief. The limited resources and close proximity of their underground existence heightened the impact of Hemlock's death. They mourned him not just in solitude, but in the collective silence, their grief echoing through the confined spaces of their subterranean home. The confines of their living space didn't allow for the usual dispersal of grief, thus amplifying the sense of loss and the feeling of vulnerability within the community. The confined space transformed their shared sorrow into a palpable entity, constantly reminding them of their shared fragility. In the aftermath, whispers of blame circulated. Some spoke of the contaminated spring, others about the inadequate medical supplies, and some even questioned the effectiveness of Theron's leadership. The lack of resources, already strained by the recent cave-in and the spreading sickness, made the already strained community even more tense. The old tensions re-emerged, intensified by their shared loss. The sense of community, already fractured by the cave-in, felt even more precarious. The emotional weight of Hemlock's death became a heavy burden on the already strained community. Anya, despite her initial grief, found herself acting as a stabilizing force. She organized the rationing of food and the allocation of medical supplies, her pragmatic nature pushing aside her personal sorrow to focus on the practical needs of the community. She recognized that the community's survival depended on their ability to overcome their shared grief and re-establish order. Her leadership, however, was not met without opposition, reminding her that even in the face of tragedy, the internal conflicts of their community persisted. Elias, haunted by the weight of Hemlock's death, dedicated himself to seeking out additional sources of food and medicine. His earlier disagreements with Theron seemed insignificant in the face of their shared loss. The common struggle, though born out of grief, created an unexpected bond between them. They worked together, combining their skill sets, finding that the cooperation born out of shared loss was far more effective than their prior individual efforts. Theron, quietly acknowledging his own shortcomings, began to understand the importance of the human connection that Hemlock had always represented. He started to listen to the needs of his community, tempering his vision with a newfound empathy. He learned that true leadership came not from control, but from shared experience and understanding. The death of Hemlock, though a tragedy, forced him to reassess his strategies and the fundamental values of his leadership. Hemlock's death served as a stark reminder of their shared mortality and the fleeting nature of life. It underscored the importance of human connection, the strength found in unity, and the need for empathy even in the face of adversity. The silence that followed Hemlock's burial was not simply a silence of grief, it was a silence of reflection, a solemn acknowledgement of their vulnerability and the fragility of their existence. Their subterranean world, once a haven, now felt more fragile than ever, their shared sorrow mirroring the cracks in the very earth that surrounded them. The loss of Hemlock was a stark, somber testament to the price they paid for their survival, a grim reminder of the continuous struggle for life and the indelible mark that grief left upon their hearts. The flickering lamplight cast long, dancing shadows on the rough-hewn walls, mirroring the unsteady rhythm of Anya's memories. The scent of damp earth and wood smoke, so familiar, did little to comfort her as she relived the events that had led her to this subterranean existence. It had begun subtly, a slow erosion of a life she once knew, a life that now felt both impossibly distant and achingly close. She remembered the sun, a vibrant, life-giving force, a stark contrast to the perpetual twilight of the tunnels. She remembered the feel of grass beneath her bare feet, the gentle warmth of summer breezes on her skin, sensations now reduced to phantom memories, ghost touches that haunted her waking hours. Her childhood home, nestled amidst rolling hills, now existed only in the fragmented tapestry of her recollections. It was a world of vibrant colors, of laughter and carefree days, a world she'd traded for the muted tones and silent anxieties of the underground. Her family had been ordinary. Her father, a carpenter with calloused hands and a gentle heart, had built their life on honesty and hard work. Her mother, a weaver with nimble fingers and an unwavering spirit, had imbued their home with warmth and love. They were not wealthy, not influential, just ordinary people who found joy in the simple things. Their life had been a slow, steady rhythm, marked by the changing seasons, the celebrations of holidays, and the comforting predictability of daily routines. They had a small garden bursting with life, a testament to their diligent labor and a source of their livelihood and joy. The laughter of children, echoing through their modest home, had filled their days with a sense of contentment that now felt impossibly distant. The change had come gradually, like the slow creep of the encroaching darkness that threatened their underground world. It started with subtle shifts, almost imperceptible at first, the growing unease in her father's eyes, the strained silences during family dinners, and the hushed conversations her parents held late at night. Initially, she dismissed it as adult concerns, mysteries beyond her comprehension. However, the subtle shifts intensified. The once vibrant garden began to yield smaller harvests, their small farm struggling under an unforeseen strain. Her parents' faces, etched with concern, became increasingly drawn. The reality crashed down upon her with the ferocity of a collapsing tunnel. The local mines, the backbone of their community, began to fail, mass layoffs became the norm. The once thriving town shrank and withered as people moved away in search of opportunities elsewhere. Their small, once comfortable world began to unravel, the security they had taken for granted slowly dismantling until the only option left was survival. Her father's carpentry business evaporated, his clients unable to pay, unable to keep their families afloat. Desperation gnawed at the edges of their lives, its claws reaching into the very heart of their once secure family. The once familiar rhythm of their days shattered into a cacophony of anxieties and uncertainties. The final blow came with the announcement of the mega-corporation, Viridian Dynamics, and its plans to seize the land surrounding their town to establish a vast industrial complex. Their small, quiet community, nestled amidst rolling hills, was deemed an obstacle, an insignificant blip in the corporation's expansionist plans. The once peaceful landscape surrounding their home would be irreversibly altered. The legal battles were long, arduous, and ultimately fruitless. Viridian Dynamics, with its vast resources and political influence, easily outmatched their small town's resistance. The promises made to relocate the community were broken, the town was condemned. Homes were demolished, businesses shuttered, and lives disrupted, leaving many people facing homelessness. Their little town was not just being physically altered, but culturally and emotionally destroyed. Their family, like many others, were offered paltry sums of compensation, a pittance that barely covered the cost of relocating to another town. However, in the chaotic scramble that followed the condemnation of their town, Anya's parents discovered a hidden network of underground bunkers and tunnels, built during World War II and since then forgotten. It was a desperate move, a last-ditch effort to salvage their lives from the destruction of their hometown. It was a harrowing transition. The comforts of the surface world were replaced by the harsh, unforgiving reality of their subterranean existence. The natural light was replaced by flickering lamps, the fresh air by stale dampness, the fertile soil by sterile rock. They lost everything, their home, their garden, their familiar surroundings, and Anya felt the sharp pain of losing what she had never truly understood she had. The comfort and security she had always known were replaced with the unrelenting anxieties and challenges of survival. However, the underground offered a sanctuary, a refuge from the encroachment of the surface world. The harsh realities of the underground were a stark contrast to the life she once knew. The relentless struggle for survival, the constant threat of cave-ins and disease, the lack of sunlight and fresh air, these were all realities that had forged her into the resilient woman she is now. It was a hard-won resilience, purchased at the price of her former life, a life she sometimes dreamt of, a life that now felt as distant as a forgotten tale. Yet, it was this very experience that fueled her unwavering dedication to her underground community, a community that now held a unique place in her heart. She may have lost her old world, but in the darkness, she had found a different kind of light. A light fueled by resilience, community and the enduring human spirit. Anya's past, etched in the shadows of her memories, became the driving force behind her commitment to the only home she now knew. The memories fueled her pragmatism, her strength, and her unshakable resolve. The ghosts of the surface world lived on, not as reminders of loss, but as fuel for her dedication to the precarious, hard-won life they now shared. The flickering lamplight painted Elias's face in shifting shades of ochre and shadow, highlighting the lines etched deeply around his eyes, lines that spoke not only of age, but of a life lived on the edge, a life far removed from the polished veneer of his past. He remembered the crisp white shirts, the tailored suits, the polished shoes that had once been his uniform. Now, his calloused hands, stained with the grime of the tunnels, moved with a practiced ease as he repaired a section of the ventilation system. The work was rough, demanding, a stark contrast to the sterile environment of his former corporate life. Yet, there was a quiet satisfaction in the tangible results of his labor, a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. His transformation hadn't been sudden or dramatic. It had been a slow, insidious metamorphosis, a gradual shedding of the skin of his former self, layer by layer. The polished exterior, the carefully constructed persona he'd presented to the world above, had crumbled and fallen away, revealing a rawness he hadn't known existed within him. The surface world, once his domain, now felt like a distant, almost mythical land, a landscape of memories tinged with regret and a longing for something he couldn't quite define. He remembered the pressure, the relentless demands of his career in finance. The cutthroat world of mergers and acquisitions, the constant striving for more, the insatiable hunger for wealth and power. It had consumed him, hollowing him out, leaving him feeling empty and unfulfilled despite the material success he'd achieved. He'd traded his soul for a penthouse apartment with a breathtaking view, a view he rarely had time to appreciate. The transition to the underground had been jarring, a plunge from the shimmering heights of the corporate world into the harsh realities of a subterranean existence. The initial shock had been profound, the claustrophobia overwhelming, the darkness suffocating. He'd missed the sun, the wind, the open sky, simple pleasures he'd taken for granted. The constant dampness, the pervasive smell of earth and decay, the ever-present threat of collapse had tested his physical and mental endurance to their limits. Yet, within this harsh environment, he'd found a different kind of strength, a resilience he hadn't known he possessed. The community, initially wary of this outsider, had slowly welcomed him, accepting him not for who he had been, but for who he was becoming. He learned to navigate the labyrinthine tunnels, to identify edible plants that grew in the damp crevices, to distinguish the sounds of approaching danger from the natural echoes of the underground world. He had initially attempted to maintain a semblance of his former life, trying to impose order and structure upon this chaotic environment. He tried to organize the communal food stores, to implement a more efficient system of resource management. His meticulous nature, once a source of pride in the corporate world, had almost proved to be a hindrance. His attempts were met with resistance. The community's structure was organic, adaptable, and not well suited for rigid systems. Gradually, he learned to adapt, to relinquish his need for control. He discovered a deeper appreciation for the subtle rhythms of the underground, a deeper understanding of the interdependence that characterized their lives. He learned the unspoken rules, the intricate social dynamics that governed this hidden society. He found solace in the shared struggles, the mutual dependence that forged strong bonds among the residents. He learned to trust, to rely on others, a skill that had been severely underdeveloped in his competitive, self-reliant former life. His physical transformation was equally significant. The refined physique he'd maintained through expensive gym memberships had been replaced by a leaner, more muscular build. The constant physical exertion required to maintain their subterranean existence had sculpted his body, making him stronger, more resilient. His complexion, once pale and pasty from a life spent largely indoors, had deepened, acquiring a healthy tan from the limited sunlight that filtered through the ventilation shafts. His hair, once neatly groomed, was now longer, unkempt, reflecting the raw energy of his new life. He'd also discovered hidden talents, skills dormant within him that had never found an outlet in his previous life. He had a knack for mechanical repair, a talent he'd honed through necessity, fixing broken equipment, repairing ventilation systems, and improvising solutions to the many challenges of their environment. He found a strange satisfaction in the ingenuity required to solve practical problems, a sharp contrast to the abstract calculations and financial manipulations that had consumed his previous existence. His psychological transformation was perhaps the most profound. The relentless pressure, the constant striving for success, the gnawing insecurity that had plagued him in the surface world had begun to fade. In this subterranean community, he found a sense of belonging he'd never experienced before. He found purpose, meaning, and a profound appreciation for the simple things in life, the warmth of a shared meal, the camaraderie of shared labor, the quiet comfort of human connection. He still carried the scars of his past, the ghosts of his former life occasionally haunting his dreams. But these memories were no longer a source of shame or regret. They served as a reminder of the long journey he had undertaken, of the profound transformation he had undergone, and of the unexpected joys and unexpected peace he had found deep within the earth. He had exchanged a life of superficial success for a life of genuine fulfillment. He had traded a penthouse apartment with a breathtaking view for a small, damp room in the heart of the earth, and in doing so, he had found himself. He had found a home not just in the tunnels, but in the hearts of the community who now considered him one of their own. The memory of the city lights, once symbols of ambition and success, now seemed distant and faded. The thrill of the financial markets, once a source of exhilaration, now felt empty and meaningless. His past was a shadow, a whisper in the back of his mind, but it no longer defined him. He was a new man, reborn in the shadows, forged in the crucible of this unique subterranean world, and he had never felt more alive. The lines on his face, etched by time and experience, told a story of hardship and resilience, a testament to his transformation, a reflection of his journey from a lost soul to a valued member of a community that had embraced him and given him a new life, a new purpose, and a profound sense of belonging. He was no longer Elias, the corporate climber, but Elias, the survivor, the mechanic, the friend, a vital part of the hidden world he now called home. Chapter 3. Hidden Secrets. The air hung heavy and still, thick with the scent of damp earth and something else. Something indefinable, faintly metallic, that prickled Elias's nostrils. He pressed his forehead against the cold, rough-hewn rock, his breath misting in the confined space. Beside him, Mara, her face illuminated by the beam of her headlamp, traced the contours of a fissure in the wall, her fingers nimble and sure. For weeks, whispers of a new passage had circulated through the community. An old map, unearthed from the forgotten archives of a long-dead prospector, hinted at a hidden route, a potential gateway to unexplored territories beneath the city. The prospect of expansion, of new resources, was both exhilarating and terrifying. The fissure, barely wider than Elias's hand, was the only clue. Days of painstaking work had been dedicated to its exploration, slowly, cautiously widening the opening with picks and shovels, inch by painstaking inch. Now, after weeks of labor, the passage was finally wide enough for a single person to squeeze through. The anticipation was palpable, a taut wire stretched tight between hope and fear. This wasn't just about finding new resources, it was about venturing into the unknown, into the heart of the city's unseen depths, a realm where the familiar rules of their subterranean existence might not apply. Mara, ever the pragmatist, checked the air quality with a small, hand-cranked device. The results were inconclusive. Slightly higher levels of carbon dioxide, she reported, her voice hushed, but nothing alarming for short-term exposure. Still, we need to proceed with caution. Elias nodded, his heart drumming a nervous rhythm against his ribs. He had grown accustomed to the claustrophobic confines of the tunnels, but this was different. This felt primal. This was an exploration into the unknown, a journey into the very heart of the Earth's hidden spaces. He thought of the surface world, the distant memory of open skies and boundless horizons, and a sudden, sharp pang of longing pierced through him. This was a journey into a darkness far deeper and more isolating than he'd ever known. He adjusted his headlamp, the beam cutting through the oppressive darkness, revealing the narrow passage that beckoned them onward. The tunnel was a claustrophobic squeeze, barely wide enough to allow passage for a single person. The walls were slick with moisture, the air thick and heavy, the oppressive silence punctuated only by the drip, drip, drip of water echoing from the unseen depths. Every few steps, Elias had to pause, the air growing tighter, more suffocating. He could feel the weight of the earth pressing down on him, an immense pressure that threatened to crush him. They moved forward in single file, Mara leading the way, her headlamp illuminating the uneven, damp surface of the tunnel. The darkness pressed in on them, swallowing their light, creating an unnerving sensation of being utterly alone in the vast, silent expanse of the earth. Elias's senses were heightened, his every nerve ending alert. He listened intently, his ears straining to detect any unusual sounds, any indication of danger. The slightest shift in the earth, a subtle creak of the rock, sent a jolt of adrenaline coursing through his veins. The passage twisted and turned, descending deeper into the earth. The air grew colder, damper, the silence more oppressive. After what felt like an eternity, the tunnel opened into a larger chamber, the space a surprising cavern, a hidden dome of immense size. It was here, bathed in the pale luminescence of their headlamps, that the true extent of their discovery revealed itself. The chamber was unlike anything they had ever seen before. It was not simply a natural formation, but a space shaped by human hands, though the evidence of their presence was ancient and almost entirely obscured by the passage of time. Strange glyphs were etched into the walls, faded yet visible, hinting at an ancient civilization, a lost history beneath the city's modern footprint. The air here was different, cleaner, lighter. A faint, almost imperceptible current of air flowed through the chamber. The walls were smoother, as though polished by time and water, revealing the remnants of intricate carvings, almost like a lost language. In the center of the chamber, a collection of artifacts rested undisturbed, covered in a layer of dust and grime, but unmistakably of human origin. Tools, pottery fragments, and strangely shaped metal objects, all spoke of a forgotten culture, a community that had once lived and thrived in this hidden realm. This was not simply an expansion of their current living space, this was a historical find of immense significance. The discovery, however, also presented unexpected challenges. The chamber was not entirely stable. There were signs of past collapses, sections of the ceiling threatened to fall, and the ground felt uneven under their feet. This new space was a treasure trove of historical artifacts, potential resources, and potentially a deadly trap. The exploration of this new passage had opened up possibilities beyond their wildest dreams, but also unveiled a host of unforeseen risks. The risk, however, was not merely structural. As they continued to explore, they discovered intricate networks of smaller tunnels branching off from the main chamber, a labyrinth of passages that seemed to stretch endlessly into the unknown. Each tunnel posed its own set of challenges. Some were narrow and constricted, requiring them to squeeze through tight spaces. Others were flooded, requiring them to navigate treacherous currents of water. The air quality varied dramatically from one tunnel to another, with some passages being almost completely devoid of oxygen and others filled with noxious gases. The exploration required not only physical strength and endurance but also strategic thinking, problem-solving skills, and close teamwork. They had to work together, supporting each other, relying on each other's strengths to overcome the obstacles and dangers they encountered. The claustrophobic nature of the tunnels, the ever-present threat of collapse, the unknown dangers lurking around every corner, all added to the suspense and anticipation. Yet, the potential rewards outweighed the risks. They had stumbled upon a hidden world, a secret history, a potential source of new resources that could secure the future of their subterranean community. The discovery of the new passage was not just a geographical expansion, it was a psychological one too. It forced them to confront their own limits, their own fears, and their own vulnerabilities. It tested their courage, their resilience, and the bonds that held their community together. The journey through the passage had become a symbol of their collective strength and their capacity for both adaptation and innovation. In venturing into the unknown, they had reaffirmed their own resilience, their ability to survive and even thrive in the face of adversity. The discovery was not only a gateway to a new world, it was a reaffirmation of their strength and their collective identity. The air grew colder still as they delved deeper into the labyrinthine tunnels branching from the central chamber. The faint, almost imperceptible current of air that had flowed through the larger cavern was absent here, replaced by a stifling stillness that pressed upon them like a physical weight. The silence, once merely unnerving, now felt ominous, punctuated only by the rhythmic drip of water and the occasional scraping sound, barely audible, that sent shivers down Elias's spine. Mara, ever vigilant, held her headlamp aloft, its beam slicing through the oppressive darkness, revealing the uneven, damp walls of the tunnel. The smooth, almost polished surfaces of the central chamber had given way to rough-hewn rock, the walls slick with moisture, the ground treacherous underfoot. The tunnel narrowed in places, forcing them to squeeze through tight spaces, their shoulders brushing against the cold, damp stone. The claustrophobia intensified, the feeling of being trapped, of being utterly alone in the vast, unforgiving earth, becoming almost unbearable. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the tunnel, a sound that sent a jolt of adrenaline through Elias, a primal fear that froze him in place. The sound was guttural, menacing, echoing from the unseen depths ahead, a sound utterly unlike anything they had ever heard before. Mara stopped, her hand instinctively reaching for the small, hand-cranked device that measured air quality, but her eyes were fixed on the darkness ahead, her expression a mixture of apprehension and grim determination. "Something's there," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the rhythmic drip of water. "Something big." They waited, tense and silent, listening intently, their ears straining to pick up any further sounds. The growl came again, closer this time, followed by a scraping sound, the sound of something large and heavy dragging itself along the tunnel floor. The air grew heavy, thick with a strange, musty odor, a scent that was both alien and deeply unsettling. Cautiously, Mara advanced, her headlamp beam dancing nervously across the tunnel walls. Elias followed closely behind, his hand resting on the hilt of his makeshift dagger, his heart pounding in his chest. As they rounded a sharp bend, they saw it, a monstrous creature, its form barely visible in the flickering light, its eyes glowing with a malevolent intensity. It was a subterranean arachnid, a creature of nightmarish proportions, its body as large as a small cart, its legs spanning several feet, each tipped with razor-sharp claws. Its 8 eyes glittered in the darkness, its mandibles clicking menacingly, as it hissed, a low, guttural sound that sent a fresh wave of terror through Elias. This was no ordinary creature. It was a predator, a hunter, perfectly adapted to its subterranean environment. The creature blocked their path, its massive form filling the tunnel, effectively trapping them. Mara, without hesitation, produced a flare from her pack, igniting it with a sharp flick of her wrist. The sudden, intense light momentarily blinded the creature, causing it to recoil, giving them a precious few seconds to react. They scrambled back, retreating down the tunnel, the monstrous arachnid in hot pursuit. The flare burned brightly, momentarily illuminating the creature's terrifying form before it sputtered and died. They fled, the sound of the creature's furious pursuit echoing behind them, its claws scraping against the tunnel walls. They ran blindly, adrenaline pumping through their veins, their lungs burning, their muscles screaming in protest. They stumbled, fell, and clawed their way back to the larger chamber, their hearts pounding in their chests. The creature's pursuit ended abruptly at the entrance to the larger chamber, its terrifying form disappearing back into the darkness, the sounds of its retreat fading into the oppressive silence. Once they had reached relative safety, catching their breath, they realized the true extent of their predicament. The subterranean world was not just a place of hidden wonders and forgotten history, it was a realm of lurking dangers, of unexpected threats that tested their resilience, their resourcefulness, and the very bonds that held their community together. The creature they had encountered was just one example of the many unforeseen hazards lurking in the depths beneath the city. The passage through the network of tunnels revealed other dangers as well. In some areas, the ground was unstable, threatening to give way beneath their feet at any moment. In others, the air quality was dangerously low, the concentration of carbon dioxide dangerously high, making breathing difficult and threatening to cause unconsciousness. They encountered flooded tunnels, forcing them to navigate treacherous currents of water, their precarious paths threatened by submerged rocks and hidden pitfalls. They discovered areas where the walls were covered in phosphorescent fungi, emitting a faint, eerie light that created an unsettling atmosphere. In other areas, the tunnels were completely dark, the darkness absolute and overwhelming. They had to rely on their headlamps and their wits, their every sense heightened, their nerves stretched to the limit. As they continued their exploration, they uncovered evidence of other creatures that inhabited these subterranean depths. They found tracks, droppings, and other signs indicating the presence of various species, both large and small, some harmless, some potentially dangerous. The ecosystem was complex and unpredictable, a hidden world of wonders and dangers. The exploration of the new passage was not just a physical challenge, it was a psychological one as well. The constant threat of danger, the isolation, the claustrophobia, and the knowledge that they were venturing into the unknown, all of these things tested their mental and emotional resilience. They faced their fears and confronted their vulnerabilities, relying on their courage, their teamwork, and their unwavering resolve to push forward, to discover the secrets hidden beneath the city. The experience forged a new level of camaraderie among them, reinforcing their bonds and strengthening their collective identity. They had faced death together and survived. They had explored the unseen depths of the earth and emerged triumphant. The new passage had brought with it many unforeseen dangers, but it had also revealed the strength, resilience, and adaptability of the subterranean community, a testament to their determination to survive and thrive, even in the face of overwhelming adversity. The journey had not been without its cost, but the rewards were far greater. The flickering lamplight cast long, dancing shadows on Anya's face as she spoke, her voice barely a whisper against the constant drip, drip, drip of water echoing through the cavern. She'd been unusually quiet since their harrowing encounter with the arachnid, withdrawn, her usually bright eyes clouded with a sadness that went beyond the normal anxieties of their subterranean existence. Elias, watching her, felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He knew something was wrong, something she wasn't telling them. He'd seen it in the way she flinched at sudden noises, in the way she avoided eye contact, in the tremor that ran through her hands whenever she reached for her tools. The Anya he knew, resourceful, brave, the woman who'd taught him how to navigate the treacherous tunnels with almost supernatural skill, was gone, replaced by a fragile shadow of her former self. He'd tried to coax it out of her gently, but she'd only met his attempts with a forced smile and a change of subject. Tonight, however, something in the air seemed different. A tension that had been simmering beneath the surface for days finally broke. It wasn't just the tunnels that scared me out there, Anya finally confessed, her gaze fixed on the damp cavern floor. The confession hung heavy in the air, unspoken questions swirling around them like the dust motes in the faint lamplight. Mara, who had been silently mending a tear in her worn cloak, looked up, her expression a mixture of concern and apprehension. Anya took a deep breath, the sound rattling in her chest like a loose stone. It was the memory, she said, her voice barely above a breath. It all came flooding back, triggered by the darkness, the claustrophobia. The monstrous thing we faced. It felt familiar. Silence descended upon them, a heavy, suffocating silence punctuated only by the relentless drip of water. Elias felt his heart sink. He'd suspected a troubled past, a reason for her fiercely guarded solitude, but he'd never imagined anything like this. He reached out a hand, hesitant, wanting to offer comfort, but unsure how. "What memory?" Mara asked, her voice soft, but her eyes sharp, assessing. Anya hesitated, her fingers tracing patterns on her worn leather satchel. "It's a long story," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "A story I've tried to bury for years. A story that changed everything." She spoke of a life before the underground, a life bathed in the light of the sun, a life she barely remembered but which haunted her dreams, a life that abruptly ended, plunging her into the darkness she now called home. She spoke of a family, a seemingly idyllic childhood in a small, quiet town nestled in the heart of the countryside. But the idyll was shattered, the memories fragmented, leaving only glimpses of a loving family, punctuated by moments of fear and escalating tension. Her father, a respected researcher, had been obsessed with a project, a secret endeavor that had consumed him completely. The project, she recalled, involved an expansive network of subterranean tunnels, very different than the ones they inhabited now, a network designed for something far more sinister. Her words were like fragmented pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, each revealing a little more, each building to a chilling picture. The more Anya revealed, the more uneasy Elias and Mara became. The details were scarce, the memories fractured, haunted by a sense of ominous foreboding. Yet, the central theme remained consistent. Her father, driven by a relentless pursuit of knowledge, a pursuit that blurred the line between discovery and destruction, had stumbled upon something terrifying, something that had irrevocably changed their lives. She recounted late-night whispers, hushed conversations she didn't fully understand, the sudden disappearance of her father, the ensuing frantic search, and finally, the devastating discovery that led to her escape. She described a hidden laboratory deep beneath their home, a place filled with strange equipment and unsettling experiments, a place that held the key to her father's disappearance and the source of her haunting memories. She spoke of strange creatures, echoing the one they'd encountered, but far more horrifying, more intelligent. Their eyes, she said, held a chilling intelligence that sent shivers down her spine, a terrifying awareness of the human presence above. The revelation hit Elias and Mara like a physical blow. Anya's past was deeply intertwined with the very nature of their existence, with the secrets buried beneath the city. The implications were staggering, threatening to shatter the precarious harmony of their community. It explained Anya's intense aversion to the deeper tunnels, her exceptional skill in navigating their labyrinthine passages, a skill far beyond what could be learned simply from experience. It was an instinctive understanding, a deep-seated knowledge of the hidden world that bordered on the uncanny. "My father, he wasn't just a researcher," Anya whispered, her voice barely audible. "He was creating something he shouldn't have." Her words left Elias and Mara speechless, the weight of her revelation pressing down on them. The story, far from easing their anxieties, only deepened the mystery and raised a multitude of unsettling questions. What exactly had her father created? What was the significance of these terrifying creatures? And more ominously, what would happen if their existence was revealed to the surface world? The unspoken fear hung heavy in the air. Anya's confession had not only revealed a personal tragedy but had also exposed a potential threat to their entire community. The revelation threw a shadow of doubt over their lives, fostering uncertainty and distrust among them. The carefully constructed peace they had built within their subterranean world now felt fragile, threatened by the weight of a buried past. Days turned into weeks. Anya's secret hung in the air, an unspoken weight that affected every interaction. The community, usually so unified in their shared adversity, became fragmented. Old resentments, long buried, surfaced. Whispers turned to accusations, trust eroded like the crumbling walls of the tunnels themselves. Some blamed Anya, seeing her as a harbinger of misfortune, a reminder of the dangers lurking beyond their carefully constructed world. Others, understanding her pain and recognizing the depth of her trauma, offered support and comfort, but their efforts felt strained, hampered by the unspoken anxieties that threatened to consume them. Elias, torn between his empathy for Anya and his concern for the community's stability, found himself caught in the crossfire. He understood the vulnerability of Anya's position. Yet, he couldn't dismiss the potential threat her revelations presented, the possibility of exposure, the risk to their fragile existence. He needed to understand what her father had created, what exactly she had escaped from. He had to confront the terrifying truth hidden beneath their world, even if it meant unraveling the very fabric of their lives. The journey ahead seemed even more perilous now, not just because of the dangers lurking in the dark recesses of the tunnels, but because the darkness had spread into the hearts of the community, a darkness far more treacherous than any subterranean beast. The hidden world was no longer just a place of refuge but a stage upon which their own human frailties were now played out, a stage where fear, distrust and buried secrets threatened to consume them all. Their fight for survival had taken a new and far more dangerous turn. The flickering lamplight revealed a figure silhouetted against the tunnel entrance, a figure too tall, too broad to be one of their own. A collective gasp rippled through the small gathering. Elias, still grappling with the implications of Anya's confession, felt a cold dread grip his heart. This was unexpected, unwelcome. An outsider, their carefully constructed isolation, their hard-won anonymity, threatened. The newcomer stepped fully into the lamplight, revealing a woman with wind-chapped skin, her eyes shielded by thick, dark glasses. She carried a worn satchel, and a sense of urgency radiated from her. She moved with a hesitant grace, as if unaccustomed to the cramped confines of the tunnels. I need help, she said, her voice strained, a slight tremor betraying her apprehension. My name is Sarah, I know about this place. Silence descended, heavy and suffocating. Mara, her gaze sharp and assessing, stepped forward. How do you know about this place? She asked, her tone wary. Sarah hesitated, glancing nervously at the faces around her. It's a long story, but I need sanctuary, and I have information that could be valuable. The information, she revealed, concerned a corporation known as EtherTech, a shadowy entity rumored to be involved in experimental technologies. Sarah had worked for them, initially unaware of the true nature of their operations. She had uncovered evidence of their interest in the underground, a clandestine project to exploit the resources and perhaps even the inhabitants of their hidden world. She produced a data chip, small but weighty in her hand. This contains everything I could salvage, she whispered, her voice barely audible above the dripping water. Their plans, their locations. Everything. The community was divided. Some, wary of outsiders, viewed Sarah with suspicion. The recent turmoil caused by Anya's confession had left them vulnerable, their trust easily fractured. They saw Sarah as a potential threat, another crack in their carefully constructed reality. Others, however, saw the value in her information, a potential weapon against a far greater danger looming above them. Elias, cautious but intrigued, examined the chip. The risk was immense. If EtherTech discovered their sanctuary, their existence would be irrevocably compromised. But inaction was equally dangerous. Sarah's information could be their only defense against a technologically superior adversary. He looked at Anya, who remained silent, her face etched with a haunting mixture of fear and recognition. There was something in Sarah's description of EtherTech's activities that resonated with Anya's fragmented memories, a chilling echo of her father's clandestine work. A tense council was convened. The debate raged, fueled by fear, distrust, and the ever-present threat of discovery. The elders, typically steadfast in their commitment to secrecy, found themselves torn. The potential benefits of Sarah's intelligence were undeniable, but the risks were equally staggering. Ultimately, a compromise was reached. Sarah would be allowed to remain, but under strict observation. Her information would be analyzed cautiously, and every precaution taken to ensure their community's safety. The decision was not unanimous. Whispers of dissent continued to ripple through the community long after the official decision. A palpable tension hung in the air, a mixture of anticipation and dread. The analysis of the data chip revealed a chilling picture. EtherTech's plans were far more sinister than Sarah had initially realized. They weren't just interested in the resources of the underground, they wanted to weaponize the creatures Anya had described, the same horrifying beings she had encountered in her childhood, the beings she had been so desperately trying to forget. The corporation's research had gone far beyond anything Anya or her father had imagined. They were attempting to control these creatures, harnessing their unique abilities, turning them into instruments of war, or worse. The implications were terrifying. The hidden world was not merely a sanctuary, it was a battleground waiting to be claimed. This discovery intensified the already fragile peace within the community. The uneasy alliance forged between the long-term residents and Sarah was further strained by the implications of EtherTech's ambitions. Anya's past was no longer a personal tragedy, it was a warning, a harbinger of a far greater conflict. The lines between survival and self-destruction seemed to blur further. The community's carefully constructed defenses, the tunnels themselves, seemed inadequate against the advanced technology and insidious plans of EtherTech. The community, once united in their shared adversity, was now divided. Some argued for immediate action, for striking at EtherTech before it was too late, even if it meant exposing their sanctuary. Others advocated for a more cautious approach, prioritizing secrecy and survival above confrontation. Elias, burdened by the weight of the decision, found himself caught between two worlds. His empathy for Anya and his loyalty to the community were pitted against the potential to save them all from the looming threat. He knew that staying hidden was no longer an option, that confronting EtherTech, however perilous, was their only chance of survival. The data chip also revealed EtherTech's plans to expand their operations further into the underground, utilizing advanced drilling and mapping technology. Their plans indicated a systematic exploration and exploitation of their subterranean world. This raised the stakes even higher. Their sanctuary, once a secure haven, was now a targeted asset. Sarah, who had initially seemed a threat, had now become an invaluable ally. Her technical skills, her familiarity with EtherTech's operations, were essential to their plans for resistance. Her knowledge of the corporation's internal workings, its weaknesses, and the vulnerabilities in their security protocols, became a significant factor in formulating a strategy for survival. The outsider, once a source of fear and uncertainty, had become a crucial component of their fight for survival. The weeks that followed were spent in feverish preparation. The community, despite its internal divisions, unified in the face of a common enemy. They fortified their defenses, strengthened their hidden pathways, and began to develop countermeasures against EtherTech's advanced technology. They utilized Sarah's knowledge to anticipate and thwart EtherTech's moves. The uneasy truce gave way to a sense of grim determination. They were prepared to fight for their existence, their lives, and their community. The hidden world, once a sanctuary, had become a battlefield, and the fight had just begun. The battle for survival, once a struggle against the elements and the darkness of the tunnels, now extended to a larger, more dangerous conflict, one where the survival of their entire community hung in the balance. The outsider's return, a source of initial fear and uncertainty, had ironically become their only hope for survival. The air in the central chamber hung thick with the unspoken. The council, a collection of weathered faces etched with years of hardship and resilience, sat in tense silence. The flickering lamplight cast long, dancing shadows that seemed to mimic the uncertainty gnawing at their hearts. Elias, his gaze fixed on the data chip resting on the rough-hewn table, felt the weight of their collective fate pressing down on him. Sarah's revelation had shattered their fragile peace, exposing them to a threat far greater than the dampness and the darkness of their subterranean existence. Mara, the community's de facto leader, broke the silence, her voice low and measured. "We are at a crossroads," she stated, her eyes sweeping across the assembled faces. "Ethertech poses an undeniable threat. Their intentions are clear: to exploit our resources, to weaponize what Anya has described." She paused, her gaze lingering on Anya, who sat hunched in a corner, her face hidden in her hands. The weight of her past, of her father's secret life, seemed to crush her. The debate that followed was a tempest of conflicting emotions and opinions. Old Man Hemlock, his voice raspy from years spent whispering in the darkness, spoke first. "We have survived this long by remaining hidden," he croaked. "To engage with the surface world, to fight Ethertech, is to risk everything we have built. Our anonymity, our safety, it is all at stake." His words resonated with many, particularly those who had known only the underground their entire lives, those who found solace in the anonymity of their hidden world. Others, however, voiced a different perspective. A younger woman named Alara, her eyes flashing with defiance, rose to her feet. "We cannot hide forever," she declared, her voice ringing with conviction. "Ethertech will find us eventually. They are coming, and when they do, will we simply roll over and let them take what they want?" Her words ignited a spark in the room, prompting nods of agreement among those who recognized the futility of passive resistance. The arguments became heated. Some saw Sarah as a potential Trojan horse, an agent of the surface world who had infiltrated their sanctuary with ulterior motives. Whispers of suspicion and mistrust circulated through the gathering. Others recognized the strategic value of Sarah's knowledge, viewing her as their only hope against a technologically superior foe. Her expertise with Ethertech's systems and security protocols became a vital piece in their strategic planning. Without her, their chances of survival dwindled. Elias, caught in the crossfire of these conflicting opinions, struggled to find a path forward. He respected the elders' emphasis on secrecy and self-preservation, but he also recognized the truth in Alara's impassioned words. He knew that ignoring Ethertech's threat was tantamount to signing their death warrant. He rose, his voice calm but resolute. "We cannot simply hope they will leave us alone," he said, his gaze sweeping the room. "We need to consider our options carefully. Ethertech's knowledge of our existence represents an immediate and profound danger. We must plan, strategically and carefully, for the likely possibility of confrontation." The debate continued late into the night, the air thick with tension and uncertainty. The council explored several possibilities: remaining hidden, attempting to negotiate with Ethertech, or actively resisting the corporation. Each option presented its own set of risks and rewards. Remaining hidden seemed increasingly unlikely as Ethertech's advanced technology made their detection almost inevitable. Negotiating with such a powerful and unscrupulous corporation seemed utterly hopeless. They were unlikely to offer any concessions. Active resistance offered a slim chance of survival, but only if they could leverage Sarah's knowledge and unite their community. Anya, despite her initial reticence, began to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. She shared fragmented memories of her father's work, revealing glimpses into Ethertech's unethical experiments. Her testimony reinforced the urgency of the situation, painting a terrifying picture of the corporation's ruthlessness and its willingness to use extreme measures to achieve its goals. Her account provided vital details about the creatures her father had studied, details that Sarah's data confirmed, details that confirmed the scope and scale of Ethertech's plans. The weaponization of these beings that Anya had known intimately, had terrifying implications. As the night wore on, a consensus began to form, though not without dissent. The community, deeply divided by its internal conflicts and the risk of self-exposure, recognized the necessity of an alliance, however precarious. They would actively resist Ethertech, using Sarah's expertise to anticipate their moves and exploit their weaknesses. They would fortify their defenses, prepare for conflict, and pray for strength and good fortune. The decision, while far from perfect, was a necessary gamble. They would rely on Sarah's understanding of Ethertech's inner workings and technological capabilities. They would utilize her intelligence to create a strategy that played on Ethertech's weaknesses, taking advantage of their blind spots and exploiting their overconfidence. This unlikely alliance would be the foundation for their survival, a fragile bridge between a subterranean community fighting for its existence and an outsider who carried the key to their future. The uneasy truce and their carefully laid plans would be tested, yet they now had a strategy and a shared enemy. The fight for survival was about to begin. The dawn broke over the surface world, oblivious to the critical decision made beneath its feet. In the depths of the underground, a new chapter unfolded, a chapter fraught with danger, uncertainty, and the fragile hope of survival. The choice of alliances had been made, a choice that would irrevocably shape the fate of their hidden community. The risks were immense, the odds stacked against them, yet they stood together, a community united in their shared determination to fight for their right to exist. The fight for their survival was a grim undertaking, yet their newfound alliance had given them hope. And as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the cracks in the ceiling, they braced themselves for the challenges ahead, ready to confront their formidable enemy in the shadows and fight for their very existence. Chapter 4. Betrayal. The air, already thick with the smell of damp earth and recycled air, grew heavier still with unspoken accusations. The initial euphoria of their hard-won alliance had dissipated, replaced by a creeping unease that coiled around the community like a venomous serpent. The claustrophobic confines of the underground, once a source of comfort and familiarity, now felt like a pressure cooker, amplifying every whispered suspicion, every sideways glance. The shared living spaces, once havens of camaraderie, now echoed with the subtle disharmonies of fractured trust. Old Man Hemlock, his face a roadmap of wrinkles etched by years of hardship, became a focal point of this growing discontent. His opposition to engaging with the surface world, initially viewed as caution, now felt like obstructionism. Whispers circulated, suggesting his reluctance stemmed not from wisdom but from fear of losing his hard-earned position in the community, fear of change, fear of the unknown. The younger generation, energized by Alara's defiant spirit, began to openly question his authority, his pronouncements met with skeptical murmurs and pointed silences. The dwindling resources further fueled the tension. The hydroponic gardens, their lifeblood, were producing less than anticipated. The carefully rationed supplies were stretched thin, leading to petty squabbles and resentment over distribution. Even the communal meals, once a symbol of their shared fate, became strained affairs, charged with unspoken accusations and veiled resentment. Accusations of hoarding and favoritism arose, poisoning the well of cooperation that had been so painstakingly established. Sarah, the unexpected ally, found herself caught in the crossfire. Her expertise, once lauded as their salvation, was now viewed with suspicion. Some saw her as an agent of Ether Tech, a mole planted to weaken their defenses from within. Others, though fewer in number, believed her loyalty was genuine, yet even they struggled to overcome the insidious whispers that poisoned their thoughts. The pressure on her was immense. Every glance felt accusatory, every word weighed heavy with unspoken distrust. Anya, still grappling with the trauma of her past and the horrifying implications of her father's work, found herself isolated. Her fragile mental state was further shattered by the growing distrust that permeated the community. The shared knowledge of EtherTech's horrific experiments only deepened the existing fissures, transforming shared fear into mutual suspicion. The once strong bonds of community were fraying at the edges. Small, seemingly insignificant incidents became amplified into major crises. A missing tool, a misplaced ration, a heated word exchanged in the dim passageways, all were fuel for the fire of mistrust that threatened to consume them. Elias, tasked with overseeing the preparations for potential conflict with EtherTech, found his efforts hampered by this internal turmoil. His attempts to foster unity were met with resistance, his strategic pronouncements greeted with skepticism and counter-arguments. The planning sessions, intended to build a cohesive defense, devolved into bitter debates filled with accusations and recriminations. One particularly tense evening, a heated argument erupted during the rationing of nutrient paste. Two families, already struggling with scarce resources, clashed over a perceived inequity in distribution. The argument quickly escalated into a physical altercation, drawing a larger crowd of onlookers who watched with a mix of fear and morbid fascination. The community's carefully constructed piece shattered into fragments, the once unseen fault lines now gaping chasms. The incident underscored the precariousness of their situation. The dwindling resources were not just a physical problem, they were a symptom of a deeper malaise that had infected the very heart of their community. The struggle for survival was no longer just against EtherTech but also against themselves, against the insidious poison of distrust and suspicion. The bonds of community, forged in hardship and adversity, were being tested to their breaking point. The claustrophobic environment of the underground seemed to magnify their internal conflicts. The echoing silence of the tunnels, once a source of peace and reflection, now amplified the tensions that snaked through their shared existence. The dim, flickering lights cast long, distorted shadows that seemed to mock their anxieties. The close proximity, once a comfort, had become a breeding ground for misunderstandings and resentment. The limited space constrained their movements, intensifying the feelings of confinement and claustrophobia. Every encounter, every shared space, was a potential source of friction. The constant proximity heightened the awareness of each other's shortcomings, their flaws, their anxieties. The walls of the underground seemed to shrink, closing in on them, as their internal strife escalated. Elias, witnessing the erosion of the community's cohesion, felt a chilling despair. He recognized that this internal conflict posed a greater threat than EtherTech itself. A divided community, weakened by mistrust, was an easy target. He knew that he needed to act decisively, to restore some semblance of unity before it was too late. The task before him was daunting. He had to confront the simmering resentment, address the accusations of favoritism and injustice, and rebuild the fragile trust that had been so easily broken. But where to begin? How could he restore faith when distrust had become so deeply ingrained? He sought advice from Mara, the community's leader. She listened patiently to his concerns, her gaze reflecting the gravity of the situation. She understood the fragility of their community, the delicate balance between survival and self-destruction. Mara's wisdom and experience were vital in navigating these troubled waters. Together, they agreed on a course of action, a series of community meetings designed to address the growing tensions head-on. It wouldn't be easy, and there was no guarantee of success. But something had to be done. The fate of the community, already hanging by a thread, could not afford to endure further internal conflict. The first meeting was tense. Open accusations flew back and forth, the emotions running raw and unchecked. The unspoken resentments spilled out, revealing the depth of the divisions within the community. Elias and Mara, both seasoned mediators in their own right, struggled to bring order to the chaos. Yet slowly, painstakingly, they began to repair the damage. They acknowledged the problems, the resource shortages, and the justified concerns of the community members. They listened, truly listened, to their grievances. They offered explanations for past decisions, clarifying misunderstandings and dispelling misinterpretations. They instituted fairer and more transparent systems for resource distribution, addressing the root causes of much of the conflict. The process of reconciliation was slow, arduous, and deeply painful. Some wounds were too deep to heal, some resentments too deeply ingrained. Yet, slowly, a glimmer of hope began to emerge. The trust, though fragile, began to mend. The shared hardships, the common threat posed by EtherTech, brought them back together. They realized that their survival depended on their ability to overcome their internal divisions and unite against the common enemy. The process of healing was long and painful, but it was a necessary step towards ensuring their collective future. The seeds of discontent still lingered, but the community was working hard to cultivate unity and ensure that these seeds did not blossom into destructive fruit. The damp chill of the tunnel seeped into Anya's bones, mirroring the icy grip of the dilemma constricting her heart. She huddled deeper into the recess, the rough-hewn stone a cold comfort against her trembling body. The flickering light from her scavenged lamp cast long, dancing shadows that seemed to mock her inner turmoil. Days had bled into weeks since the escalating tensions had fractured the underground community, and Anya, burdened by her own haunted past and the weight of a terrible secret, felt increasingly isolated. The revelation of her father's role in EtherTech's horrific experiments had left her reeling. The knowledge, once a source of horrifying fascination, now felt like a branding iron seared onto her soul. It was a secret she carried like a festering wound, a constant reminder of her complicity, however unintentional, in the atrocities committed above ground. The community's growing distrust, fueled by dwindling resources and simmering resentments, only amplified her self-recrimination. She wasn't sure who to trust anymore. Old Man Hemlock's rigid adherence to secrecy felt less like caution and more like a desperate clinging to power, a refusal to acknowledge the changing tides of the underground. Alara's fiery rebellion, though initially inspiring, now seemed reckless, a potential catalyst for further chaos. Even Sarah, with her undeniable expertise and unwavering commitment, was tainted by suspicion, a silent accusation hanging heavy in the air around her. Anya's own expertise, honed through years of studying her father's forbidden research, had become a source of both power and agonizing conflict. She possessed knowledge of EtherTech's technology, knowledge that could potentially aid the underground in their fight for survival. But using that knowledge felt like betraying the very principles she now desperately clung to, principles of redemption and a desperate hope for a future free from her father's dark legacy. The weight of her secret pressed down on her, suffocating her with its gravity. She had access to blueprints, schematics, and vital information about EtherTech's security systems, information that could expose their weaknesses and give the underground a decisive advantage. Sharing this knowledge, however, meant collaborating with the very people who had facilitated her father's monstrous work. It felt like aligning herself with the serpent to kill the serpent, a grotesque irony she couldn't reconcile. The alternative felt equally repugnant. To remain silent, to hoard the knowledge that could potentially save lives, felt like a monstrous betrayal of her own principles, a perpetuation of the very evil she sought to escape. The faces of her fellow underground dwellers flickered in her mind. The children, their innocent eyes reflecting a future she desperately wanted to protect. Elias, burdened by the weight of leadership and the mounting internal conflict. Sarah, her unwavering commitment a beacon in the encroaching darkness. Even Old Man Hemlock, for all his flaws, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity. Each face represented a life potentially jeopardized by her silence. The thought sent a cold wave of fear washing over her, a stark reminder of the precariousness of their existence. EtherTech was an ever-present threat, a malevolent entity waiting to exploit their weaknesses. The internal divisions only served to amplify their vulnerability. Anya knew, with a chilling certainty, that if they didn't unite, their survival would become a matter of sheer luck, a cruel gamble against overwhelming odds. The flickering lamplight danced across the rough-hewn walls, illuminating the grim reality of her situation. She felt like a pawn in a macabre game, trapped between a rock and a hard place, her every move fraught with moral implications. The underground, once a sanctuary, had become a crucible, testing the limits of her resolve, challenging her beliefs, and forcing her to confront the darkest recesses of her own soul. Sleep offered no escape. Nightmares plagued her, visions of her father's experiments, the twisted faces of the victims, the sterile gleam of EtherTech's laboratories. She would wake in a cold sweat, her heart pounding, the weight of her secret pressing down on her chest. Even during the day, the specter of her dilemma haunted her, an unwelcome companion that shadowed her every step. She considered seeking guidance from Mara, the community leader, but the prospect filled her with trepidation. Mara, wise and compassionate, held the trust of the community. Confessing her knowledge, however, risked undermining that trust, potentially unleashing a wave of fear and suspicion that could further destabilize the already fragile community. The thought of revealing her father's legacy to the very people he had wronged filled her with a sense of profound shame. She had wrestled with the burden of her father's actions for so long, carrying the weight of his sins as if they were her own. The idea of adding to the community's collective burden felt unbearable, a final betrayal that would eclipse all others. Days turned into weeks, the weight of her dilemma becoming increasingly unbearable. The gnawing guilt, the fear of betrayal, the constant threat from EtherTech, all these factors combined to create a pressure cooker of emotional turmoil. Her appetite dwindled, her sleep became fitful and fragmented, her once bright eyes now shadowed with a profound weariness. She tried to distract herself with her work in the hydroponic gardens, but even the simple act of tending to the plants felt burdened by the weight of her secret. The rhythmic task, once a source of solace, now served as a constant reminder of her inaction, her failure to act on the knowledge that could potentially save so many lives. One evening, as she sat alone in her meager dwelling, a sudden realization struck her. Her dilemma wasn't simply a choice between betrayal and silence, it was a choice between different forms of betrayal. Sharing her knowledge would betray her father's legacy and potentially the trust of the community. Staying silent would betray her own conscience, the values she had come to hold dear, and potentially the lives of her fellow inhabitants in the underground. The choice, however difficult, was hers to make. The decision wouldn't be easy, but Anya knew that she had to choose. She would need to find a way to navigate this treacherous moral landscape, to find a path that would allow her to both protect the community and reconcile with her own troubled past. The weight of the world rested on her shoulders, but she knew that she could not, and would not, carry this burden alone. Anya knew she had to start by seeking support, by sharing her burden with someone she trusted, someone who could help her navigate this treacherous path. The first step toward reconciliation, toward redemption, was admitting her burden. And she knew just who she needed to confide in, Elias. Anya found Elias in the central cavern, his brow furrowed in concentration as he reviewed a tattered map of the underground tunnels. The dim light of the oil lamps cast long shadows on his face, accentuating the weariness etched into his features. He looked up as she approached, his gaze holding a mixture of concern and apprehension. He knew something was wrong. The heavy weight of her secret pressed against her chest, a physical burden that made each breath a labored effort. She hesitated, the words catching in her throat. This was it, the moment of truth. The moment she would either shatter the fragile trust within the community or take a step towards healing the wounds that festered beneath the surface. It was a risk, a gamble with the future of the underground, but she had reached a point where silence was no longer an option. Elias, she began, her voice barely a whisper, I need to tell you something. He motioned her closer, his expression shifting from apprehension to concern. He had always been perceptive, a quality that had served him well as leader of the underground. He knew her well enough to see the turmoil warring within her, reflected in her trembling hands and the haunted look in her eyes. She took a deep breath, the stale, damp air filling her lungs. The story tumbled out in a torrent of words, a confession that spilled from her lips like a dam bursting under the weight of pent-up emotions. She spoke of her father, of his work with Ether Tech, of the horrific experiments conducted in their sterile laboratories, and of her own unwitting complicity. She detailed her discovery of the blueprints, schematics, and the secrets he had meticulously documented. She even divulged her expertise of their security systems, information that could potentially save them, could bring their fight for survival to a definitive victory. A weight lifted off her shoulders with each confession. Elias listened intently, his face unreadable. When she finished, silence hung heavy in the air, broken only by the occasional drip of water from the cavern ceiling. The silence felt more profound than any outburst could ever be, more ominous than any accusation. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and measured. So, you have the key to EtherTech's downfall, he stated, his tone devoid of accusation, but laced with caution. Anya nodded, her eyes fixed on the floor. The knowledge she held was a burden, a potential weapon that could be used for good or evil. The weight of that responsibility weighed heavily on her. And you haven't told anyone else? Elias asked, his gaze intense. The question hung in the air, a silent accusation of betrayal, not from Anya but from the silence she had maintained. Anya shook her head. I couldn't, she admitted, her voice thick with emotion. I was afraid of the consequences, afraid of the repercussions. She hadn't realized the depth of her betrayal until this moment. A wave of tension washed over Elias' face. The weight of this secret, his own burden of leadership, seemed to press upon him. This changes everything, he finally stated. He knew the implications of her confession were monumental. The underground, already fragile and fractured by internal conflict, now faced a new threat, the potential for complete disintegration. Trust, the very foundation of their existence, was severely compromised. The revelation sparked a chain reaction of accusations and mistrust. Old Man Hemlock, ever vigilant, saw Anya's confession as a means to consolidate his power and further tighten his control over the community. He spread whispers, carefully worded suggestions of treachery, planting seeds of doubt and fear. Alara, always quick to take action, interpreted Anya's confession as a personal betrayal, a betrayal of her ideology and the trust she had placed in Anya. Sarah, though initially skeptical, saw the potential in Anya's knowledge. The betrayal threatened to split the already divided community into factions. The tension escalated until it felt palpable, a thick, suffocating blanket that stifled any sense of hope. Accusations flew like poisoned darts, fueled by fear, suspicion, and the desperation born of their precarious existence. The once harmonious rhythm of the underground was replaced by a cacophony of doubt and mistrust. Alliances shifted, friendships crumbled, and the bond that had held them together for so long threatened to unravel completely. Sarah, driven by a fierce sense of logic and her unwavering commitment to the underground, emerged as a crucial figure in navigating this crisis. She proposed a council meeting, where Anya could present her knowledge and where the community could debate how best to proceed. It was a risky move, but Sarah knew that transparency and open discussion were crucial to defuse the situation. She recognized the potential for the community to crumble under its internal contradictions. The meeting was a crucible of emotions. Anya, despite her fear, stood her ground, presenting her evidence in a calm, measured tone. She laid bare her father's horrific experiments, detailed the functionalities of the ether-tech technologies, and demonstrated how her knowledge could be utilized to expose their weaknesses and potentially gain a strategic advantage. The council was a maelstrom of conflicting opinions. Old Man Hemlock, clinging to his traditional ways, opposed any collaboration with ether-tech, fearing the inevitable consequences. Alara, though initially hesitant, recognized the strategic value of Anya's knowledge and reluctantly agreed to collaborate. Elias, bearing the weight of leadership, tried to steer them towards a path of reasoned debate, emphasizing the need for unity in the face of adversity. The debate raged for hours, the tension palpable in the air. The fate of the underground hung precariously in the balance. The weight of collective anxiety was heavy, the fear that their betrayal of trust and their fracturing community could spell the end of their sanctuary. Anya's betrayal wasn't just a personal one, it was an existential threat to their shared existence. The ultimate decision was far from unanimous, a testament to the deep fissures that had been opened in the community. But a fragile consensus emerged. Anya's knowledge would be utilized, not to attack ether-tech directly, but to gather intelligence and secure their future. A plan, born from necessity and driven by a shared desire for survival, began to take shape. This betrayal had revealed a brutal truth. Their trust had been tested, and the community would never again be quite the same. The cracks in their unity were laid bare, and the long road to healing and reconciliation would need a concerted effort from all involved. The path ahead would still be treacherous, but for the first time in days, Anya felt a glimmer of hope, a fragile spark that could ignite the flame of resilience within the underground once more. The future remained uncertain, but the betrayal had finally been unveiled, and the healing could begin. The cavern pulsed with a tense energy, the air thick with unspoken accusations. The council meeting, intended as a path towards reconciliation, had devolved into a chaotic clash of ideologies. Old Man Hemlock, his face a mask of simmering resentment, glared at Anya, his eyes like chips of flint. He hadn't forgiven her, not for the secrets she'd kept, nor for the cracks her revelation had exposed in the fragile unity of the underground. His silence, a carefully cultivated weapon, was more potent than any shouted condemnation. He knew how to wield fear, how to exploit the inherent anxieties of a community living on the edge of survival. Alara, her usually composed demeanor shattered, paced restlessly. Her disappointment in Anya was palpable, a wound that ran deeper than simple distrust. Anya had been her friend, a confidant, and the betrayal felt like a personal affront, a violation of the deep bonds they had forged in the harsh realities of the underground. Her anger, however, was tempered by a grudging recognition of the strategic value of Anya's knowledge. The potential benefits outweighed her personal feelings, though the conflict raged within her. Sarah, ever pragmatic, tried to maintain order, her voice cutting through the cacophony of whispers and accusations. She knew the line between survival and destruction was thinner than ever. Their community, already fractured by internal strife and the constant struggle for survival, teetered on the brink of collapse. The revelation of Anya's father's treachery had exposed their vulnerability, and the ensuing mistrust threatened to tear them apart completely. She had worked tirelessly to build a consensus, to find a path forward, and watching it crumble felt like watching the very foundations of their world collapse. Elias, the silent observer in this unfolding drama, watched the simmering tensions rise. He knew this confrontation couldn't be avoided. The weight of leadership pressed heavily upon him, the responsibility for the fate of the community resting squarely on his shoulders. He had seen the best and worst of humanity within the confines of the underground, and he knew that the truth, once unveiled, had the power to either heal or destroy. He looked at Anya, seeing not just a betrayer, but a woman wrestling with the consequences of her actions, a woman burdened by a secret that could shatter their world. The argument escalated from heated debate to open accusations. Voices rose, fueled by fear and resentment. The cavern, once a sanctuary, felt like a pressure cooker about to explode. Old Man Hemlock, seeing his opportunity, began to rally those who shared his distrust of Anya, whispering inflammatory words, painting her as a traitor who had willingly collaborated with the surface world. His words struck their fears like poison darts, spreading the seeds of division and escalating the tension. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a man known only as Silas, a shadowy figure who had always operated on the fringes of the community. He had been silent throughout the council meetings, a silent observer, but he had been a beneficiary of Anya's father's experiments, and his survival depended on keeping the secret secure. His presence now was a dark cloud, a chilling reminder of the dangers that lurked beneath the surface. He believed Anya's knowledge had to be silenced, forever. Silas's entrance shifted the balance of power. He saw his chance to eliminate any threat to his own survival, and this confrontation served as the perfect opportunity to do so. With a sudden, brutal movement, he lunged at Anya, a knife glinting in the dim light. Chaos erupted. The cavern plunged into a maelstrom of violence, the previously contained anger exploding into a raw, visceral confrontation. Elias reacted instantly, throwing himself in front of Anya, deflecting the blow. The clash of metal against metal echoed through the cavern, the sound amplified by the confined space. A brutal fight ensued, a chaotic melee of fists and blades. The air filled with the grunts of exertion, the thud of bodies hitting the damp earth, and the panicked cries of those caught in the crossfire. Those loyal to the community joined the fray, defending Anya and Elias from Silas and his followers. The meticulously maintained peace of the underground was shattered, replaced by primal violence. The fight was savage, a desperate struggle for survival mirrored in the desperation of their situation. It wasn't simply a fight for Anya's life, it was a fight for the very soul of the underground. The community, once unified by a shared struggle, was now fractured, its members pitted against each other in a brutal battle for dominance. The cavern, a symbol of their refuge, became the scene of their internal destruction. Old Man Hemlock watched, a grim satisfaction etched on his face as the community descended into chaos. Alara, torn between her loyalty to Anya and her hatred of the betrayal, hesitated, before finally joining the fight, choosing the survival of her community above her own personal feelings. The lines of allegiance blurred as members chose sides, propelled by old grievances and newfound alliances. Sarah, witnessing the brutal violence, fought to maintain some semblance of order, her voice strained amidst the clash of steel and flesh. She tried to pull individuals away from the chaos, to create a space for reasoning and diplomacy, but her efforts were largely futile as the community descended into anarchy. The raw emotion that fueled the fight overwhelmed any attempts at control. In the midst of the melee, Anya found her voice, not in cries of fear, but in a roar of defiance. The betrayal she had suffered fueled her, giving her strength she never knew she possessed. She fought with a fierce intensity, her knowledge of the tunnels granting her a surprising edge, her movements weaving through the chaotic fight with lethal precision. She recognized many of the fighters, knowing their fighting styles and using this to her advantage. The fight was not only physical, it was a psychological battle as well, a struggle for survival both individual and collective. The conflict raged for what seemed like an eternity, the violence echoing through the tunnels. The once peaceful cavern was now a battlefield, stained with blood and littered with broken weapons. The air hung heavy with the stench of sweat, fear, and blood. But amidst the chaos, a turning point arrived. Elias, through sheer force of will and tactical brilliance, managed to disarm Silas and subdue his followers. The fight was not over, however, as the lingering resentment and mutual distrust would linger for a long time. In the aftermath of the brutal confrontation, the cavern stood silent. The only sounds were the labored breaths of the injured and the drip of water echoing through the cavern. The air hung heavy with the scent of blood and the weight of what had transpired. The community stared at each other, faces etched with exhaustion, their bodies aching, their spirits broken. The battle had left deep scars. Their sanctuary was no longer a tranquil refuge, but a place stained by violence. The betrayal had left its mark, a cruel reminder of their fragility. The fragile consensus achieved earlier was shattered, replaced by a raw, brutal reality. The road ahead remained uncertain, scarred by this brutal confrontation. The reckoning was far from over. The healing, if it were possible, would require a profound shift in their community, a willingness to confront the darkness they had unleashed within themselves, and a shared commitment to rebuilding the fractured trust that once held their world together. The silence that followed the brutal fight was heavier than the humid air hanging thick in the cavern. Blood, a dark stain on the damp earth, mirrored the wounds inflicted upon the community. Elias, his chest heaving, leaned against the cavern wall, his arm wrapped protectively around Anya, who was pale but unharmed. The victory, hard won and brutal, felt hollow. The triumphant feeling that should have followed the defeat of Silas and his followers was absent, replaced by a profound sense of loss and disillusionment. The cavern, once a sanctuary, now felt like a tomb. The air, once alive with the murmur of conversation and the comforting rhythm of community life, was thick with the metallic tang of blood and the chilling silence of shattered trust. Each flickering lamp cast long, distorted shadows, highlighting the exhaustion etched on the faces of the survivors. They were wounded, not just physically, but emotionally, their sense of security shattered by the violence they had unleashed upon themselves. Old Man Hemlock, his face a mask of grim satisfaction, retreated into the shadows, his silence a testament to his victory. He had achieved his goal, albeit not in the way he had anticipated. Anya's exposure, the subsequent violence, had effectively neutralized her influence within the community, leaving him free to consolidate his own power. His victory, however, was a Pyrrhic one, a testament to the poisonous seeds of distrust he had so diligently sown. The community, fractured and vulnerable, was now ripe for the taking. Alara approached Anya, her face etched with a mixture of relief and lingering resentment. She knelt beside her friend, her touch gentle, as she examined Anya's wounds. The relief of Anya's survival was palpable, but the betrayal still smarted. Alara understood the strategic importance of Anya's knowledge, but she could not easily forgive the deception, the erosion of trust that had shaken the foundations of their friendship. The bond between them, once unbreakable, was now strained, a fragile thread hanging by a whisper. Sarah, her face grim, surveyed the carnage. She moved methodically through the injured, tending to their wounds with a practiced efficiency that belied the turmoil within her. The idealistic vision of a harmonious community, a vision she had tirelessly worked to achieve, lay shattered around her. She had always believed in the strength of unity, in the power of shared purpose, and the sight of her community tearing itself apart felt like a personal failure. The weight of responsibility, the burden of leadership, pressed down on her, suffocating her with a sense of despair. The injuries were extensive, some were severe. The fight had been brutal and unrelenting, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. Several members were severely injured, several others, barely conscious. The medical supplies, painstakingly gathered and conserved, were quickly depleted, highlighting their vulnerability and their constant struggle for survival. The fear that gnawed at the heart of the community now had a tangible, bloody manifestation. The aftermath was far from quiet. Whispers filled the cavern, fueled by fear, mistrust, and the lingering bitterness of betrayal. Accusations hung in the air, unspoken yet potent, threatening to reignite the violence that had just subsided. The fragile truce was precarious, held together by exhaustion and the shared realization that their community was teetering on the brink of collapse. Days bled into weeks. The process of healing began, but it was a slow, painful one, marked by suspicion and the slow, arduous task of rebuilding shattered trust. The wounds inflicted upon the community were deep and pervasive, affecting every aspect of their lives. Their routines were disrupted, their sense of security was shattered, the unity that had once characterized their existence had fragmented. The council meetings, once a beacon of hope and shared purpose, were now strained affairs, marked by tension and suspicion. Each decision was fraught with difficulty, each interaction a delicate negotiation between opposing factions. The community, once unified by a common goal, was now divided, fragmented into rival groups, each clinging to its own interpretation of events, each nursing its own grievances. The emotional toll was immense. The trauma of the fight, the loss of innocence, the shattering of trust, all left deep scars on the psyche of the community. Grief, despair, and disillusionment hung heavy in the air, creating a suffocating atmosphere of uncertainty and fear. The joy and camaraderie that had once characterized life in the underground were overshadowed by a lingering sense of dread and the constant threat of further violence. The sense of safety, once paramount, had vanished. Even the most mundane tasks were tainted by the lingering aftereffects of the betrayal. The daily routines, once a source of stability and comfort, were now fraught with tension, each encounter laden with unspoken accusations and the threat of further conflict. The shared meals, once opportunities for camaraderie and bonding, were tense affairs, haunted by the memory of the recent violence. Even the animals, usually a source of comfort, seemed to sense the shift in the community's atmosphere, their usual playful energy replaced by a wary stillness. The underground, once a refuge from the surface world, had become a reflection of its darkest aspects, a microcosm of societal conflict and betrayal. The struggle for survival had brought out the best and worst in the inhabitants. In the aftermath of the violence, they were left to confront the consequences of their actions, the dark underbelly of their collective existence. The rebuilding process was a long and arduous one. Sarah, with the support of those who remained loyal to the principles of unity and cooperation, began the painstaking work of reconciliation. They held small group meetings, focusing on emotional healing, shared experiences, and the re-establishment of trust. They implemented new measures to promote transparency and accountability within the community, to ensure that the events of that night would not be repeated. The process was slow and often frustrating. The shadows of the past lingered, casting a pall over the present and hindering their efforts. But slowly, tentatively, a sense of unity began to emerge. They understood that the violence had not only exposed their vulnerabilities, but had also highlighted the resilience of their community. The act of rebuilding was a powerful affirmation of their collective spirit, a reaffirmation of their commitment to the shared values that had once defined their existence. The scars of betrayal remained, a constant reminder of the fragility of their world. Yet, they started to find a way to weave these scars into a new narrative, one that acknowledges the darkness but also celebrates the strength of their community. They would learn to live with the consequences of treachery, knowing that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit could find a way to endure, to heal, and to rebuild. The road ahead was long and uncertain, but they would face it together, forged in the crucible of betrayal and violence, united in their determination to create a future where trust and harmony could once again flourish in their hidden community. The wounds would heal, leaving only faint reminders of the night that tore them apart, a testament to their collective resilience. Chapter 5. Survival's Grip. The dwindling supply of purified water became the immediate crisis. Their usual source, a painstakingly maintained filtration system, had been damaged during the fight, leaving them with barely enough to last a week. The decision was brutal, rationing. Not a gentle reduction, but a stark, almost cruel division of their already meager supplies. Arguments erupted, fueled by thirst and desperation. Old Man Hemlock, ever opportunistic, used the crisis to further consolidate his power, subtly manipulating the distribution to favor his loyalists. He whispered promises of a hidden spring, a secret reserve, dangling the promise of survival like a carrot in front of a starving donkey. Sarah, however, refused to be swayed. She knew Hemlock's promises were as empty as his morality. She organized a team, despite the exhaustion and injuries, to repair the filtration system. The task was Herculean. Parts were broken, others missing, and the constant threat of cave-ins loomed large. Working by the flickering lamplight, the team toiled for days, sweat stinging their eyes, hunger gnawing at their bellies. They worked not only to fix the system but also to rebuild the fractured trust amongst themselves. The shared struggle, the common goal, was a fragile bridge to mend the fissures within the community. Meanwhile, the food supplies, already low, were rapidly diminishing. Hunting parties, once a source of pride and camaraderie, now returned with meager catches, reflecting the dwindling wildlife in their subterranean world. The animals, usually plentiful, were becoming scarce, perhaps sensing the turmoil within the community or simply driven away by the violence. The choice was stark: reduce rations further or risk starvation. This new hardship only exacerbated the tension within the community. Hemlock, seeing an opportunity, presented a solution: a foray into the unexplored tunnels beyond their established territory. He painted a picture of untold riches, of abundant resources, a panacea for their troubles. But Sarah, haunted by the memory of Silas's violent ambition, voiced her concerns. She knew these unexplored territories were riddled with unknown dangers, natural hazards like collapses and possibly other hidden communities, possibly even more hostile than Silas's group. The risk was substantial, the potential reward, uncertain. Yet, the alternative was starvation, and many were swayed by Hemlock's persuasive words. He skillfully played on their fears and hopes, making himself look like the only viable path to survival. The expedition was fraught with peril. The tunnels were a maze of twisting passages, dark and treacherous, the air thick with the smell of damp earth and something else, something unsettling, a metallic tang reminiscent of blood. They navigated narrow passages, the constant drip, drip, drip of water creating a symphony of tension. Cave-ins were a constant threat, and the ever-present darkness stoked their fears. The explorers, weakened by hunger and exhaustion, moved slowly, their senses heightened, their nerves taut. One member of the expedition, a young man named Finn, stumbled upon a hidden chamber. Inside, they found not the promised abundance but something far more chilling: evidence of a previous community, seemingly wiped out in a brutal massacre. Bones, scattered amongst decaying equipment and personal belongings, were a silent testament to a forgotten tragedy. The tools, once used to build and maintain their lives, now lay scattered and broken, a macabre symbol of their own possible fate. The discovery sent shivers down their spines. The image of the massacre echoed the recent violence within their own community. It served as a stark reminder of their own vulnerability. The hope that had fueled their journey was replaced by a crushing sense of despair. The unexplored tunnels held no promise of salvation, only a chilling reflection of their own precarious existence. It was clear now, the promised riches were a lie. Hemlock had sent them on a suicide mission, a deliberate act of thinning out those who were not part of his growing band of loyal followers. Returning to the main cavern, they were met with a mixture of relief and outrage. Sarah, having suspected Hemlock's treachery all along, confronted him. The confrontation, though heated, was not violent. Many had witnessed the horrors of the expedition, finally realizing the depth of Hemlock's manipulation. His authority, built on lies and fear, crumbled under the weight of evidence and the collective disillusionment. He was stripped of his power, not through violence, but through the exposure of his duplicity. The community, scarred but not broken, faced their dire situation with renewed resolve. The expedition had brought them to the brink, but it also forced them to confront the reality of their situation. They realized that the path to survival wouldn't be paved with false promises and opportunistic manipulation, but with cooperation, shared responsibility, and a deep understanding of their mutual interdependence. Their rationing continued, but it was now fairer, more equitable, reflecting a renewed sense of community and a shared commitment to their common survival. The rebuilding process continued, but it was now infused with a grim determination, a newfound clarity that their survival depended not on any one person, but on their collective strength. Their struggle for survival had taken them to the deepest depths of despair, but from the ashes of betrayal and near annihilation, a new hope began to dawn, the hope of a truly unified and resilient community, forever changed but strengthened by their shared ordeal. They would rebuild, not just their shelters and their supplies, but their faith in each other and their collective future in the heart of the underground. The fragile peace, forged in the crucible of Hemlock's exposed treachery, was still a nascent thing, a delicate seedling struggling to take root in the harsh soil of their subterranean existence. Yet, amidst the lingering anxieties and the ever-present threat of starvation, something unexpected began to bloom, unlikely alliances. Sarah, who had borne the brunt of Hemlock's machinations, found herself working side by side with individuals who had, until recently, been staunchly loyal to him. The shared trauma, the stark realization of their shared vulnerability, had eroded the deep-seated divisions within the community. Amongst them was Elias, a hulking man whose intimidating presence had once been a symbol of Hemlock's power. Elias, initially reluctant, had witnessed the horrors of the unexplored tunnels firsthand, the chilling evidence of the massacre serving as a sobering reminder of their precarious existence. He had seen the depth of Hemlock's cruelty, the cold calculation behind the deceitful expedition. The experience stripped away the layers of loyalty that had bound him to the old leader. He had lost his blind faith, replaced by a sobering acceptance of their shared fate. Their first collaboration was small, seemingly insignificant, the repair of a damaged section of the tunnel wall, threatening to collapse and sever their access to a crucial water source. Elias, with his strength and experience in tunnel construction, proved invaluable. Sarah, with her leadership skills and strategic thinking, directed the operation, ensuring the work was done swiftly and efficiently. It wasn't merely a physical task, it was a symbolic act of reconciliation, a tacit acknowledgement of their shared commitment to survival. Their collaboration extended beyond mere repairs. Elias, possessing an intimate knowledge of the tunnel system gleaned from years of working under Hemlock, now used his expertise to map out safer routes for hunting parties and resource-gathering expeditions. His knowledge was crucial. Previously hidden shortcuts and less treacherous paths were now identified, reducing the dangers of exploration. The previously neglected and perilous paths, now mapped and understood, were a symbol of their renewed focus on practical survival. Then there was Anya, a young woman who had always been skeptical of Hemlock but lacked the influence to challenge him directly. Her sharp intellect, previously overshadowed by Hemlock's control, now shone brightly. She meticulously cataloged the community's remaining resources, optimizing their distribution to ensure fairness and efficiency. She worked alongside Sarah, and her insights were vital in devising a new system of rationing that prevented the kind of conflict that had plagued them previously. Anya's analytical skills were pivotal in providing a fairer system and preventing the conflicts that had plagued them under Hemlock's arbitrary rule. The meticulous records she kept and presented also formed the backbone of a new community agreement. A pact that laid out resource management, work distribution, and conflict resolution based on cooperation rather than the whim of a leader. Another unexpected ally was Finn, the young man who had discovered the grisly evidence of the massacre. His initial shock and despair had given way to a steely determination. He took on the responsibility of educating the community about the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of collective decision-making. His near-death experience in the tunnels had become a turning point, transforming him from a fearful youth into a determined advocate for transparency and accountability. He initiated community meetings, open forums where individuals could voice their concerns and participate in the decision-making process, ensuring that the bitter lessons of the past were not forgotten. These alliances weren't formed overnight. Trust, shattered by years of suspicion and manipulation, couldn't be rebuilt with a simple handshake. It was a slow, painstaking process, fraught with occasional setbacks and misunderstandings. Old habits and ingrained prejudices lingered, creating friction. There were moments of hesitation, moments of doubt, and even moments of open conflict. But the shared experience of near annihilation had created a shared consciousness. The chilling discovery of the massacred community in the unexplored tunnels served as a constant reminder of their fragility. They realized that their survival hinged not on the dominance of one individual but on the collective strength and cooperation of all. The threat of starvation loomed large, but it was a threat they now faced together. The fight for survival had forged a bond stronger than any individual ambition or past grudges. The rationing, while still stringent, was implemented with a newfound fairness and transparency. The work was divided according to individual abilities and needs, maximizing efficiency and minimizing resentment. Hunting parties were organized with a greater emphasis on safety and collaboration, and the strategies adopted were more sophisticated, taking into account the dwindling wildlife population and the need to conserve resources. The rebuilding efforts were not merely focused on physical structures but also on the social fabric of the community. The community meetings became vital forums for discussion and collective decision-making. Disputes, once settled through intimidation or arbitrary power plays, were now discussed and resolved through dialogue and compromise. The shared goal, survival, transcended their differences. As days turned into weeks, the unlikely alliances blossomed into something more profound. Elias, with his immense strength, now trained younger members in self-defense and tunnel maintenance. Anya, with her analytical mind, started developing strategies for sustainable agriculture, utilizing the limited space available. Finn, haunted by the massacre, became a relentless advocate for social justice and democratic participation within the community. The transformation was not without its challenges. Old wounds occasionally reopened, reminding them of the deep divisions that had once existed. But these challenges only strengthened their resolve, proving that their newfound unity was not merely a temporary response to crisis but a genuine shift in their collective consciousness. They had stared into the abyss and emerged, not unscathed, but forged anew in the fires of shared adversity. The unlikely alliances, born from necessity and forged in the crucible of near destruction, became the bedrock of their newfound resilience, the foundation upon which they would build a future, together. The underground, once a symbol of isolation and despair, was slowly becoming a testament to the enduring power of human connection and the surprising resilience of the human spirit, even in the darkest of times. The chilling reminder of the massacre served not only as a warning, but as a catalyst for their shared transformation, proving that even amidst the unforgiving harshness of their subterranean existence, humanity, in all its complexity, could still find a way to thrive. The initial tentative steps towards collaboration had blossomed into something far more profound. Elias, once a symbol of Hemlock's oppressive regime, now stood as a pillar of strength, his immense physique a reassuring presence in the dimly lit tunnels. His transformation was not merely physical, it was a metamorphosis of character. The haunted look in his eyes, a testament to the horrors he had witnessed in the unexplored tunnels, had begun to soften, replaced by a quiet determination, a steely resolve born from the crucible of shared trauma. His knowledge of the labyrinthine tunnel system, once a tool of control and oppression under Hemlock, became a lifeline for the community. He meticulously mapped out new routes, identifying safer paths for hunting parties and resource-gathering expeditions. His understanding of the subterranean landscape, previously used to exploit and control, now served to protect and provide. He taught the younger generation the intricacies of tunnel navigation, sharing his skills and experience with a patience and care that belied his initially intimidating demeanor. These lessons weren't simply about survival, they were about empowering others, creating a sense of shared responsibility and collective resilience. His leadership wasn't about issuing commands or wielding power, it was about inspiring cooperation and fostering a spirit of mutual support. He led by example, working alongside others, sharing the burdens and celebrating the small victories. His enormous strength, once a tool of intimidation, became a source of comfort and security. He became a protector, a silent guardian, always willing to lend a hand, to offer support, and to share his hard-won knowledge. The transformation wasn't limited to Elias. The community, too, underwent a profound shift. The fear and suspicion that had once been so pervasive began to dissipate, replaced by a growing sense of unity and purpose. They rallied around Elias, drawn to his quiet strength and unwavering commitment to their shared survival. The community meetings, initiated by Finn, became more than mere forums for discussion. They evolved into collaborative efforts, where ideas were freely shared, problems were tackled collectively, and decisions were made through consensus rather than diktat. Anya, with her sharp intellect, continued her meticulous work cataloging resources and developing strategies for sustainable agriculture. She worked closely with Elias, her analytical skills complementing his practical experience. Together, they implemented a new system of resource management that was both efficient and equitable. The meticulous records she kept became the foundation of a new community agreement, a document that enshrined their commitment to transparency and shared responsibility. It was a far cry from Hemlock's arbitrary pronouncements and unilateral decisions. Finn, still haunted by the massacre, channeled his grief into action. He became the community's voice, advocating for fairness and justice. His near-death experience had ignited in him a passion for social equality and democratic participation. He continued to organize community meetings, fostering open dialogue and ensuring that every voice was heard. He became a symbol of hope and resilience, reminding the community that even in the darkest of times, the pursuit of justice and equality remained a vital force. Sarah, initially wary of Elias, found herself working alongside him on numerous projects. His experience in tunnel construction proved invaluable in repairing damaged sections of the tunnels, preventing further collapses and securing vital resources. Their collaboration transcended mere practicality. It became a symbol of reconciliation and healing, a testament to their shared commitment to survival and their burgeoning mutual respect. Her strategic thinking and leadership skills guided the collective effort, helping to bring order and efficiency to their often chaotic endeavors. The challenges remained immense. The threat of starvation was ever present, the limited resources a constant reminder of their precarious situation. The dwindling supply of food and water forced them to develop innovative solutions. Elias, utilizing his knowledge of the tunnels, led explorations into previously uncharted areas, searching for new sources of sustenance. His leadership was not solely about directing, he took part in the hunting parties, sharing the risks and the rewards with the rest of the community. He brought a new level of collaboration and organization to the expeditions, ensuring safety and maximizing efficiency. He became a teacher, sharing his knowledge of edible plants and the subterranean wildlife, teaching others the skills necessary for their continued survival. The community's transformation extended beyond mere practicality. The bonds that formed were deep and meaningful, forged in the fires of shared adversity. The collective trauma had erased the old divisions, uniting them in a common purpose. They learned to trust each other, to rely on each other's strengths, and to support each other through the inevitable setbacks and hardships. They developed a sense of collective responsibility, recognizing that the survival of each individual depended on the well-being of the entire community. Evenings were now filled with a quiet contentment. The shared meals, once a source of tension and resentment, now served as opportunities for fellowship and mutual support. Stories were shared, laughter was heard, and the bonds of community grew stronger with each passing day. The resilience of the human spirit shone through the darkness, illuminating the tunnels with a newfound hope and a shared determination to persevere. Elias's leadership was not about dictating or controlling, it was about guiding, empowering, and inspiring. He fostered a culture of collaboration, where every individual felt valued and empowered. He showed them that strength wasn't just about physical power, but about resilience, perseverance, and a shared commitment to a common goal. The community, once fractured and divided, had become a cohesive unit, a testament to the enduring power of human connection. Elias's transformation mirrored their collective metamorphosis, reflecting their journey from despair and division to hope and unity. Their unlikely alliances, born from necessity and forged in the crucible of near annihilation, had become the cornerstone of their resilience, a testament to the human spirit's ability to find strength and purpose even in the face of overwhelming odds. The underground, once a symbol of isolation and despair, had slowly begun to transform into a beacon of hope, a testament to the enduring power of human connection, ingenuity and cooperation. The once chilling, shadowy tunnels now reflected a shared determination, a vision for a future carved not by fear, but by a steadfast commitment to their shared destiny. The faint, almost imperceptible tremor resonated through the tunnels, a subtle vibration that at first went unnoticed. It was Anya who detected it, her finely tuned senses attuned to the nuances of the subterranean world. She was meticulously charting the water table levels, a crucial task in their ongoing struggle for survival, when the rhythmic pulse registered on her makeshift seismograph, a repurposed metal pipe suspended over a bowl of water. Initially, she dismissed it as another minor shift in the earth, a common occurrence in their unstable environment. But the tremor persisted, growing slightly in intensity, its regularity suggesting a pattern rather than a random geological event. This unusual consistency prompted a deeper investigation. Finn, ever vigilant, organized a small exploration team, comprising Elias, Sarah, and Anya herself. Armed with their rudimentary tools, battered lanterns, picks, and ropes, they followed the tremor's source, venturing deeper into the uncharted territories of the tunnels. The air grew heavy with anticipation, a palpable tension hanging in the damp air. Each step echoed in the vast emptiness, the silence punctuated only by the rhythmic pulse beneath their feet. The tremor led them to a section of the tunnels that had been deemed too unstable, too dangerous to explore. A massive rockfall had sealed off the passage years ago, a testament to the unpredictable nature of their subterranean home. But the tremor, this insistent rhythm beneath their feet, suggested a change, a shift in the geological landscape. With careful excavation, they chipped away at the debris, their hearts pounding in unison with the ever-present tremor. The breakthrough came unexpectedly, a sudden collapse of loose rock revealing a large cavern previously unknown to them. The cavern was bathed in an ethereal, phosphorescent glow, emanating from a previously unseen network of fungal formations that illuminated the space with an eerie, otherworldly light. But it wasn't the luminescent fungi that captivated their attention. It was the sound, a steady, rushing sound that echoed from the far end of the cavern. Following the sound, they discovered a subterranean stream, a substantial current of fresh, clean water gushing from a fissure in the cavern wall. It was a breathtaking discovery, a lifeline in their desperate struggle for survival. The stream offered not just a plentiful source of clean water, a luxury they had long since relinquished, but also a potential source of hydroelectric power. The implications were staggering. A reliable supply of clean water and a means of generating electricity, a potential revolution in their subterranean existence. The initial euphoria, however, was tempered by caution. The cavern was unstable, the ground beneath their feet shifting precariously. The stream, while a blessing, also presented a threat, its power a reminder of the unforgiving nature of their environment. Elias, with his keen understanding of the tunnels, led the assessment of the cavern's stability. Sarah, utilizing her engineering knowledge, began to devise strategies for harnessing the water's power, her blueprints appearing on scraps of salvaged parchment by lantern light. Anya, with her scientific expertise, conducted water quality tests, assuring them that the water was indeed potable, free from the contaminants that had plagued their previous water sources. The discovery was more than just a solution to their immediate problems. It was a symbol of hope, a testament to their resilience and collective effort. It offered a potential path toward a sustainable future, a glimpse beyond the daily struggle for survival. The community, once defined by scarcity and fear, now faced a future brimming with possibilities. The once oppressive weight of survival began to lighten, replaced by a cautious optimism. The news of the discovery spread through the community like wildfire, igniting a renewed sense of purpose and collaboration. The grim reality of their underground existence did not disappear. The challenges remained substantial, but the discovery of the stream injected a dose of much-needed optimism. The previously pervasive sense of despair was slowly being replaced by a glimmer of hope. The collaborative spirit intensified as the community rallied around the project of harnessing the subterranean stream. Elias, his strength and experience invaluable, led the construction of a sturdy dam to control the water flow, preventing potential flooding while ensuring a consistent supply. Sarah's engineering expertise proved crucial in designing a rudimentary hydroelectric generator. Finn, using his persuasive charm and effective communication skills, coordinated the community's efforts, ensuring that every member contributed to the construction process. Even those previously hesitant to participate were inspired by the shared vision of a brighter future. Anya's scientific prowess guided the development of sanitation systems, ensuring that the newly discovered water supply remained clean and free from contamination. Her meticulous approach, so characteristic of her, provided the scientific bedrock upon which their project was built. This new focus brought about a renewed sense of purpose, an opportunity to create something beautiful and beneficial from the adversity they faced. The evenings, once shadowed by anxieties about food and water scarcity, now echoed with the sounds of hammers, saws and the quiet murmur of collaborative planning. The shared meals held a new vibrancy, conversations filled with hopeful speculation about the future. The once drab tunnels, illuminated only by the flickering glow of their lanterns, were now slowly being transformed, reflecting a communal spirit far exceeding their previous fragmented existence. The project was not without its challenges. The unstable terrain required meticulous planning, the construction efforts often slowed by unforeseen collapses. The primitive tools and limited resources tested their ingenuity and resilience. But the spirit of unity remained strong, their collective determination fueling their efforts despite the setbacks. They faced moments of doubt, moments when the enormity of the task seemed insurmountable. There were times when fatigue weighed heavily, when the seemingly endless work threatened to extinguish their flickering flame of hope. Yet, each time, they persevered, drawing strength from each other, and from the promise of the future. As the generator slowly took shape, a new sense of community began to flourish, stronger and more vibrant than before. The shared adversity, once a source of discord, became a catalyst for collaboration and mutual support. The previous suspicion and fear began to recede, replaced by a newfound trust and camaraderie. The completion of the hydroelectric generator was a monumental achievement. The first surge of electricity, a weak but undeniable current, sent a ripple of excitement through the community. The faint hum of the generator became a symbol of their collective triumph, a testament to their enduring spirit and shared determination. The darkness of the tunnels began to yield to the light of hope. The once desolate underground world, a bleak symbol of isolation and despair, was gradually transforming into a space of unity, resilience, and a cautious but genuine optimism. The faint hum of the generator was more than just electricity, it was the sound of a community reborn, its spirit rejuvenated by hope. The project went beyond the practical, it redefined their collective identity, forging bonds that strengthened with each passing day. Their shared struggle towards a brighter future, a future illuminated by their own efforts, served as a powerful testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. The initial surge of electricity, that weak but undeniable current, was more than just a technological breakthrough, it was a psychological one. The hum of the generator, initially a faint whisper, gradually grew into a steady thrum, a constant reassurance in the echoing silence of the tunnels. It was the sound of a community finding its footing, its rhythm, its renewed purpose. The darkness that had once seemed absolute, a suffocating blanket of despair, now held pockets of light, each bulb a testament to their collective triumph. The transformation wasn't instantaneous. The scars of their past, the lingering anxieties of survival, didn't vanish overnight. The tremors still occasionally shook the ground, a stark reminder of the precariousness of their existence. The rationing of food remained, though the newfound abundance of clean water eased the strain. But there was a palpable shift in the community's demeanor. The haunted looks, the weary silences, began to give way to smiles, to laughter, to a hesitant but growing optimism. The days following the generator's completion were a flurry of activity. The extra hours of light, fueled by the hydroelectric power, allowed for more extensive repairs to the tunnels. Damaged sections were reinforced, unstable pathways were stabilized, and previously inaccessible areas were explored and secured. The newfound energy extended beyond the physical, it invigorated their social lives. The community hall, once dimly lit and sparsely used, became a vibrant hub of activity. Children, previously confined to the shadows of their dwellings, now played freely, their laughter echoing through the renovated spaces. The elders, those who had witnessed the community's darkest hours, shared their stories, their wisdom, and their hopes for the future. Their experiences, once a source of heavy hearts and whispered fears, now became a foundation of shared understanding and strength. The younger generation, inspired by their resilience and their dedication to survival, listened with rapt attention, gleaning insights into the lessons of the past, preparing themselves for the challenges ahead. Finn, ever the pragmatic leader, oversaw the reorganization of the community's tasks. The newfound energy allowed for a more equitable distribution of labor. The previously grueling work of water collection and food rationing was streamlined, freeing up valuable time for other projects. The women, previously burdened by the disproportionate share of domestic duties, saw their contributions increasingly recognized and valued. Their skills in weaving, sewing, and preserving food were vital to the community's well-being, their contributions recognized not just as domestic necessities but essential elements of their collective survival. Sarah, with her engineering mind now freed from the relentless pressure of immediate survival, began to explore more ambitious projects. She envisioned a system of interconnected tunnels, a more efficient network connecting all parts of the community. She began drawing detailed plans, sketching on salvaged scraps of metal, her blueprints illuminating the future she envisioned, a connected, vibrant, and sustainable community. Elias, his physical strength augmented by his newfound optimism, took on the task of training the younger generation in the skills necessary for survival. He taught them the art of tunneling, the science of geological assessment, and the importance of teamwork and mutual support. His wisdom, born from years of experience navigating the perilous underworld, became a crucial part of their communal knowledge, passed down to the next generation. Anya, her scientific mind ever at work, focused on improving the quality of life in the community. She developed systems for better ventilation, reducing the humidity and the stale air that had been a constant companion. She also started experimenting with cultivating edible fungi in the caverns, expanding their food sources and lessening their dependence on the limited supplies they could salvage from the surface. The collective effort brought about a gradual transformation in the community's social structure. The hierarchical system, born out of necessity during the early days of their existence, began to soften. The lines between roles blurred, as individuals found their unique talents and contributed to the shared goal of building a better future. The evenings, once dominated by the anxieties of survival, now filled with the shared sounds of music and storytelling. The children, energized by the newfound sense of security and stability, performed impromptu plays, their voices echoing with the newfound joy of a childhood not burdened by constant fear. However, their new beginning wasn't without its challenges. The subterranean world remained an unforgiving mistress. There were periodic floods, minor rockfalls, and occasional shortages of resources. But these challenges, once debilitating, now served as tests of their strength, their unity, and their resolve. Each obstacle overcome strengthened the bonds between them, reinforcing the shared identity that their collective struggle had forged. The sense of community was no longer defined by the constraints of survival, but by the shared vision of a better future. They were not merely coexisting in the dark, they were actively creating a life for themselves, a vibrant and resilient community carved out of the seemingly impossible. They were building a new world, not just surviving in an old one. The darkness of the tunnels still loomed, but it was no longer a symbol of despair. It was simply the backdrop to their shared story, a testament to their enduring spirit and the extraordinary resilience of the human heart. The faint hum of the generator remained their constant companion, a beacon of hope, a reminder of their shared triumphs. It was the heartbeat of a community reborn, its rhythm echoing with the newfound assurance of a future where survival wasn't just a struggle, but a triumph, and where a new beginning flourished amidst the shadows. The subterranean world, once a prison, was becoming their home, a testament to the human spirit's remarkable capacity for adaptation, resilience, and the enduring hope for a brighter tomorrow, even in the deepest, darkest depths. Their story was not simply one of survival, but a testament to the power of the human spirit to not just endure, but to thrive, even amidst the relentless darkness. Chapter 6. Beneath the Surface. The first tentative steps onto the surface were taken under the cloak of a moonless night. A small, hand-picked team, Finn, Sarah, Elias, and Anya, led the expedition. Their hearts pounded a rhythm against their ribs, a counterpoint to the hushed whispers of the wind rustling through the overgrown foliage. The world above, once familiar, now felt alien. The city skyline, fractured and scarred, loomed like a skeletal hand against the inky canvas of the night sky. Buildings stood as hollowed-out shells, their windows dark, empty eyes staring into the void. The familiar streets, once bustling with life, were now pathways choked with weeds and debris, silent monuments to a forgotten era. Their initial exploration was confined to the immediate vicinity of their escape tunnel, a cautious probing of the changed landscape. The air, thick with the scent of decay and damp earth, felt strangely different, a stark contrast to the recycled air of the underground haven. The silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of unseen creatures, was a heavy blanket, oppressive in its emptiness. They moved slowly, methodically, their senses heightened, alert to any sign of danger, both human and natural. Sarah, ever the pragmatist, meticulously documented their findings. She sketched the ruined buildings, charting the extent of the damage, noting the presence of new growth, the patterns of decay. Her notes were a mixture of scientific observation and raw emotion, a record of the world lost and the world reborn. Elias, ever watchful, scanned their surroundings, his gaze sharp, his instincts honed by years of navigating the dangers of the underworld. He pointed out the signs of animal life, the tracks of scavengers, the nests of birds perched precariously on shattered rooftops. Anya, her scientific curiosity piqued, collected samples of soil and plants, analyzing their composition, searching for signs of radiation, of contamination. Finn, his leadership role a constant burden, observed everything, weighing the risks and benefits of further exploration. He understood the importance of gathering information, but also recognized the inherent dangers of venturing too far from the safety of their subterranean refuge. The surface world, despite its apparent emptiness, held an unknown number of threats. The memories of the catastrophe that forced them underground were still fresh, the fear of a repeat occurrence a constant undercurrent in their lives. Their initial discoveries were a mixture of the expected and the unexpected. The destruction was far more extensive than they had imagined, a landscape ravaged by a catastrophe they still struggled to fully comprehend. But amidst the ruins, they also found signs of life, tenacious plants pushing through cracks in the pavement, resilient weeds flourishing in the rubble. They even encountered a small colony of feral cats, lean and wary, but surprisingly unafraid. The cats, like them, seemed to have adapted to the new reality, surviving in the ruins of the old world. Their second foray was bolder, venturing further into the once familiar city grid. They found the skeletal remains of vehicles, twisted metal husks that served as grim reminders of the past. They navigated through streets strewn with rubble, their progress slow and deliberate. The silence, though, was not total. The wind carried with it strange noises, distant sounds that sent shivers down their spines. The sounds evoked a mixture of mystery and fear, an unsettling reminder of the uncertainties lurking in the shadows. During their explorations, they stumbled upon a section of the city that appeared relatively unscathed. A few buildings remained intact, showing signs of recent habitation. A flicker of hope ignited in their hearts, replaced quickly by caution. They discovered evidence of scavenging, hastily abandoned campsites, and scattered items suggesting a hasty retreat. The air hung heavy with an unnerving sense of abandonment, a silent testament to the unforeseen events that may have driven the residents away. The unsettling nature of the discovery served as a sobering reminder of the unpredictable nature of the surface world. Their subsequent expeditions were characterized by a growing awareness of the profound change that had occurred. The city, once a symbol of human achievement, was now a desolate expanse, a testament to both human ingenuity and human fragility. The familiar landmarks were unrecognizable, shrouded in weeds and overgrown plants. The ruins were a silent narrative of a catastrophe that had fundamentally reshaped their world. The discovery of a preserved archive, its contents protected by a near-miraculous happenstance, offered them valuable insights into the events leading to the apocalypse. The records documented the escalating environmental crisis, the societal breakdown, and the desperate attempts to avert disaster. Through their meticulous efforts, they began to piece together a fragmented history, a grim chronicle of a society unable to avert its own self-destruction. The surface world was not merely changed, it was irrevocably altered. The familiar landscape was replaced by a desolate expanse, punctuated by the ghosts of the past. Yet, amidst the ruins, they found signs of tenacity, the resilient plants, the feral animals, and the evidence of other survivors. They realized they were not alone in their struggle for survival. The knowledge gained during these surface expeditions provided them with a deeper understanding of the changed circumstances, leading them to reassess their strategic plans. Their initial optimism gradually tempered by the stark reality of the surface world, which presented a different set of challenges compared to the underground haven they had carefully constructed. They realized that the surface, though seemingly offering greater resources, also posed significant risks, requiring a careful approach, a constant awareness of potential threats, and a recalibration of their survival strategies. Their time spent on the surface was carefully planned, each excursion meticulously detailed, the dangers meticulously assessed. They learned to recognize the subtle shifts in the wind, the patterns of animal activity, the signs of possible human presence. Their subterranean existence, though initially a refuge from the surface world, now served as a crucial vantage point from which to observe and understand the changed landscape above. The surface was not merely a dangerous wilderness, it was a complex system of intertwined ecological and societal shifts, and understanding its nuances was key to their continued survival. The experiences profoundly altered their perspectives. The underground community, once defined by its isolation, now grappled with a newfound sense of interconnectedness, even with the uncertainties of the surface world. Their subterranean haven, previously a prison, had become a sanctuary, a haven of stability amidst the chaos of the outside world. They understood that their future would require a delicate balance, leveraging the resources of the surface while safeguarding the security and stability of their underground haven. The surface world was no longer a distant memory, it was a part of their reality, a challenge, and an opportunity. The contrast between the familiar and unfamiliar, the known and unknown, shaped their future plans, making their survival more nuanced and their future more complex than ever before. The surface world, once their enemy, now became a part of their reality, a complex entity to be understood and cautiously navigated. The tentative peace that had settled over their subterranean haven was fragile, a thin veneer over the deep-seated anxieties and unresolved conflicts that simmered beneath the surface. The initial shock of their return from the surface had given way to a period of introspection, a soul-searching that forced them to confront the ghosts of their past and the anxieties of their future. Finn, burdened by the weight of leadership, felt the strain of their shared trauma. His gruff exterior masked a deep-seated vulnerability, a fear of failure that gnawed at his confidence. He initiated a series of community meetings, not as pronouncements of authority, but as facilitated discussions, designed to foster dialogue and understanding. Sarah, ever the pragmatic voice of reason, suggested a structured approach to resolving their differences. She proposed a series of community projects, collaborative tasks that would require them to work together, to rely on each other's strengths, and to overcome their individual prejudices. The first project was the rehabilitation of a section of the tunnels that had been damaged during the initial upheaval. The task was daunting, requiring both physical strength and collaborative effort. Initially, there were resentments, underlying tensions that threatened to derail the effort. Old wounds, long suppressed, were reopened, revealing the depth of mistrust and lingering animosity. Elias, known for his fierce independence and solitary nature, initially resisted the idea of collaboration. His past experiences had taught him to trust no one, to rely only on his own skills and instincts. Yet, as the work progressed, he began to see the value of teamwork, the efficiency that came from harnessing the collective skills of the group. He found himself surprisingly adept at teaching others, sharing his knowledge of the tunnels, his keen understanding of the intricacies of their subterranean world. Anya, a scientist by nature, discovered a renewed sense of purpose in applying her skills to practical problems. Her detailed observations, her meticulous planning, and her unwavering attention to detail proved invaluable. The most significant challenge came in the form of resolving the conflict between two factions within the community. A rift had developed over resource allocation, a disagreement exacerbated by the scarcity of supplies. One faction, led by a gruff veteran named Marcus, advocated for a strict rationing system, prioritizing the needs of the most vulnerable. The other, led by a younger, more idealistic member named Lena, argued for a more equitable distribution, based on need rather than strict rationing. The tension between them had grown to a point where open conflict seemed imminent. Finn, recognizing the potential for disaster, carefully facilitated a series of meetings, offering a neutral platform for both sides to air their grievances. He listened patiently, allowing each faction to voice their concerns without interruption. He skillfully guided the discussion, focusing on the common goal, the survival and well-being of their community. He emphasized that their differences should not overshadow their shared destiny, that their survival depended on their ability to work together. He appealed to their sense of shared history, to the hardships they had endured together, highlighting their resilience and their ability to overcome adversity. Slowly, patiently, the barriers began to crumble. Marcus, initially reluctant to compromise, began to see the validity of Lena's arguments. He recognized the importance of maintaining morale, of ensuring that everyone felt valued and respected. Lena, in turn, acknowledged the practical difficulties of an entirely equitable distribution system, particularly in times of scarcity. She understood the need for a system that balanced fairness with sustainability. Their reconciliation was not a sudden epiphany but a gradual process, a series of small compromises and acts of goodwill that gradually built trust and understanding. The sense of relief was palpable. The tension that had been suffocating the community lifted, replaced by an atmosphere of cooperation and mutual respect. The project progressed smoothly, with both factions working together seamlessly. The repaired section of the tunnels became a symbol of their renewed unity, a testament to their ability to overcome their differences. The collaborative effort extended beyond the immediate task. They began working together on other projects, sharing knowledge and resources, fostering a sense of shared purpose. The renewed unity wasn't just about logistics, it extended to their personal relationships. The once isolated individuals began to connect on a deeper level, forming stronger bonds of friendship and support. Elias, who had long resisted intimacy, found himself drawn into the community's activities, participating in shared meals and storytelling sessions. He even began to develop a closer bond with Anya, their shared scientific curiosity bridging the gap between their divergent personalities. The collective experience of near destruction had forged a bond stronger than any past conflict. They had faced the abyss together, and that shared trauma had bound them in a way that no amount of argument or disagreement could sever. The surface world, with its dangers and uncertainties, became a shared challenge, a common goal that demanded their collective effort. The community's newfound unity wasn't merely a superficial reconciliation, it was a profound shift in their collective consciousness, a recognition that their survival depended on their ability to overcome their differences and to support each other. Their shared purpose extended beyond mere survival. It became a commitment to building a sustainable community, a place where they could not only survive but thrive, despite the chaos and uncertainty of the world above. This new sense of unity extended beyond the immediate confines of the community. They began to plan for future expeditions to the surface, this time with a clearer understanding of the challenges and a greater sense of cooperation. They realized that the surface, with all its dangers, also held the potential for new discoveries, new opportunities. The renewed unity brought a sense of hope, a belief that even in this ravaged world, they could build a future worth fighting for. The repaired tunnels, now a testament to their resilience, became a symbol of their renewed hope, a beacon of light in the darkness of their subterranean world. Their shared trauma, once a source of division, had become the crucible in which their unity was forged, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit to overcome adversity and find common ground even in the face of overwhelming odds. The journey from conflict to reconciliation had been long and arduous, but the reward, a unified community, ready to face the future together, was worth every struggle. The sense of shared purpose strengthened their resolve, transforming their subterranean haven from a mere refuge into a vibrant, resilient community, a testament to the resilience and adaptability of the human spirit. The tentative peace, painstakingly forged in the depths of their subterranean world, extended beyond the repaired tunnels. It was a fragile bridge, built not of stone and mortar, but of trust and shared purpose, cautiously spanning the chasm between their hidden community and the surface world they had once abandoned. The initial forays to the surface were hesitant, almost furtive. Small scouting parties, comprised of the most agile and resourceful members, ventured out under the cloak of darkness, their movements deliberate, their senses heightened. Their objective wasn't conquest or reclamation, but reconnaissance, a careful assessment of the changed landscape, a search for signs of life, and most importantly, a search for resources. The surface world, once a source of comfort and familiarity, now felt alien, a landscape scarred by the upheaval that had driven them underground. Nature had begun its slow, relentless reclamation, swallowing buildings and roads under a blanket of overgrown vegetation. The air, once polluted, now carried a strange purity, a stark contrast to the recycled air of their subterranean haven. The silence, broken only by the wind rustling through the ruins, was both unnerving and strangely liberating. Each expedition brought back valuable information, maps of the changed terrain, samples of edible plants, and assessments of potential hazards. Anya, with her scientific background, proved invaluable in analyzing the samples, identifying edible flora and avoiding poisonous varieties. Her meticulous reports became essential guides for future expeditions, ensuring the safety and efficiency of their forays to the surface. Elias, with his intimate knowledge of the tunnels and their hidden passages, mapped potential routes, identifying areas that provided cover and shelter from the elements. His keen eye spotted subtle changes in the landscape, warning of potential dangers before they became threats. The initial expeditions were fraught with anxiety. The memory of their past experiences, the violence, the chaos, the desperation that had driven them underground, loomed large, casting a long shadow over their efforts. Yet, as they gathered more information, as they began to understand the changed landscape and its challenges, their anxieties began to dissipate, replaced by a grudging respect for the resilience of both nature and humanity. The expeditions were not just about gathering resources, they were about rebuilding a connection to the world above, a world they had once called home. The discovery of a small, isolated community of survivors provided a crucial link. This group, though wary of their subterranean counterparts at first, eventually established a tentative truce, exchanging information and resources. The exchange was mutually beneficial. The surface dwellers possessed knowledge of the changed landscape, and access to resources unavailable underground. The underground community offered advanced medical and technological capabilities, skills honed in the depths of their self-sufficient city. This nascent alliance marked a turning point. The bridge between the two worlds, once a fragile idea, began to solidify, strengthened by mutual respect and shared goals. The surface dwellers, initially distrustful, learned to appreciate the skills and ingenuity of their underground counterparts, while the subterranean community, accustomed to isolation, began to embrace the possibilities of reintegration. The exchange extended beyond practical matters. They shared stories, histories, and memories, bridging the cultural divide that had separated them. The surface dwellers shared tales of the upheaval, their struggles for survival, their losses. The underground community, in turn, described their life below, their adaptation, and their unexpected resilience. This exchange of narratives not only fostered understanding but also highlighted the universality of the human experience, revealing the shared humanity that had been obscured by their different circumstances. The exchange also fostered an unexpected cultural blossoming. Musical instruments, long forgotten or abandoned, were rediscovered, their melodies echoing in the ruins and the tunnels. Art, created from found objects, adorned the landscape, giving expression to their shared trauma and newfound hope. Shared meals, prepared with ingredients from both worlds, became occasions for celebration and reconciliation, bonding the two groups in a spirit of mutual respect and understanding. The integration wasn't seamless. There were moments of tension, misunderstandings, and disagreements. The differences in lifestyles, values, and priorities created friction, challenging the fragile bridge. Yet, every conflict served to strengthen their bond, refining the process of understanding and reconciliation. Finn, ever the pragmatic leader, facilitated open dialogues, fostering communication and addressing concerns with patience and respect. Sarah's organizational skills proved invaluable in coordinating the efforts, ensuring smooth cooperation and efficient resource allocation. The success of their integrated efforts encouraged further cooperation. They established a system for regular exchanges, establishing pathways and checkpoints that ensured both safety and efficiency. These paths became more than just routes for resource exchange. They symbolize the growing bond between the surface and subterranean communities, tangible evidence of their commitment to building a future together. The process was gradual, painstaking, fraught with uncertainty, but it was marked by a slow, steady growth of mutual trust and respect. The bridge, once a precarious span, was now becoming a solid, enduring structure, a testament to their collective resilience and their capacity for understanding. The once isolated communities were merging, learning from each other, creating a new culture, a new reality built on the foundations of shared experience and mutual respect. This new reality wasn't just about survival, it was about building a better future, a future that embraced both the strengths of their subterranean haven and the potential of the surface world. The transformation was not limited to the practical aspects of cooperation. It touched the hearts and souls of the individuals involved. Elias, once a solitary figure, found himself drawn into the collective efforts, participating in community projects and sharing his expertise with the surface dwellers. His interactions with Anya, their shared dedication to scientific exploration, strengthened their bond, forging a friendship that transcended their differences. Marcus, who had initially resisted cooperation, came to appreciate the value of collaboration, finding fulfillment in guiding the younger generation and sharing his wisdom with the surface dwellers. Lena, ever the idealist, saw her vision of a more equitable society begin to materialize, as the underground and surface communities developed systems for shared governance and resource allocation. This wasn't just about merging two worlds, it was about creating a new society, one that combined the best of both cultures, creating a more resilient, sustainable, and harmonious future for all. The bridge between worlds was not simply a physical structure, but a metaphor for the evolution of their shared human spirit. It was a testament to their adaptability, their resilience, their capacity for understanding, and their determination to rebuild not just their lives but also their society, creating a future that would defy even the most pessimistic predictions. It was a journey from isolation to integration, from conflict to collaboration, from despair to hope, a journey that demonstrated the transformative power of shared purpose, mutual respect, and the indomitable human spirit. The bridge stood as a symbol of hope, a beacon of light in the darkness, a testament to humanity's enduring capacity to overcome adversity and build a better future, together. The rhythmic clang of metal on metal, the familiar scent of recycled air mingling with the earthy aroma of freshly tilled soil, these were the sounds and smells of their new reality. Elias, his face smudged with dirt and a faint dusting of pollen, meticulously adjusted a hydroponic system, its intricate network of tubes and pumps a testament to the ingenuity of their underground civilization. He'd traded the shadowy corners of the tunnels for the sun-dappled spaces of the reclaimed greenhouse, a project born from the unlikely alliance between the surface and subterranean communities. Anya, her brow furrowed in concentration, studied the growth patterns of a newly sprouted variety of potato, a resilient strain unearthed during one of their initial surface expeditions. Their shared workspace, once a symbol of their individual pursuits, now represented their shared vision for the future. Their individual expertise had proven invaluable in bridging the gap between the two worlds. Elias, with his innate understanding of the tunnels and their complex infrastructure, adapted his skills to designing sustainable irrigation systems for the reclaimed farmland. His intimate knowledge of the underground environment allowed him to create a closed-loop system, minimizing water waste and maximizing yield. Anya, her scientific mind always at work, focused on developing new strains of crops adapted to both the underground and surface environments. She meticulously documented her findings, sharing her knowledge with the other members of the community, empowering them to contribute to the collective effort. Their partnership extended beyond the practical. Their evenings were filled with quiet conversations, the hum of the greenhouse a gentle counterpoint to their shared reflections. They discussed their hopes and anxieties, their dreams for the future. They spoke of the lost world they had once known, the world of bustling cities, of technological marvels and social complexities, but also of the inequality, the conflict, and the ecological catastrophe that had driven them underground. Their conversations were a testament to the enduring power of human connection, a bond forged in the crucible of survival, strengthened by shared purpose and mutual respect. The transformation was profound. Elias, once a solitary figure, haunted by the memories of loss and isolation, found solace in the collaborative spirit of their newly integrated community. He participated in community projects, offering his skills to those in need, building bridges, both literally and metaphorically, between the two once separate societies. He felt a sense of belonging he had never known before, a feeling of purpose that transcended his personal struggles. He found joy in mentoring younger members, imparting his knowledge and skills, ensuring that the community's resilience and self-sufficiency continued to thrive. Anya, too, had undergone a transformation. Her scientific pursuits, once confined to her private laboratory, blossomed into a collective endeavor. She established a community-based education program, fostering scientific literacy and empowering others to contribute to the community's well-being. She found fulfillment in sharing her knowledge, witnessing the growth and development of the community around her. Her scientific approach, once intensely focused on individual research, now emphasized collaboration and the pursuit of collective goals. Their evolving relationship mirrored the integration of the two communities. It was a relationship grounded in mutual respect, shared purpose, and a deep understanding forged in the face of adversity. It wasn't a romantic entanglement, but a profound partnership, a testament to the strength and resilience of their individual spirits and the potential for unity even in the face of overwhelming challenges. Their bond transcended the boundaries of romantic love, becoming a cornerstone of the emerging society, a symbol of the cooperation that was essential to their collective survival and prosperity. Their combined efforts extended beyond the immediate concerns of food production and technological advancements. They played a crucial role in establishing a system of shared governance, ensuring that the voices of both the surface and subterranean communities were heard and respected. Their dedication to transparency and inclusivity fostered a sense of unity, healing the wounds of the past and creating a sense of hope for the future. Their efforts were not limited to practical considerations, they extended to the realms of culture and social harmony. They supported the establishment of community centers where the skills, knowledge, and traditions of both groups were shared and celebrated. They encouraged the rediscovery and preservation of traditional arts, music, and storytelling, weaving together the disparate threads of the two cultures into a rich tapestry of shared heritage. They understood that a strong society required not just physical resilience, but also cultural vibrancy. It required a sense of shared identity, of belonging, of purpose. Their future wasn't simply a personal one, it was intertwined with the collective future of their newly unified community. Their success wasn't just measured in terms of food production or technological innovation, it was measured in the strength of their community bonds, the resilience of their culture, and the growth of their collective hope. The once fragile alliance had blossomed into a vibrant society, where the distinctions between the surface and subterranean worlds were blurring, replaced by a shared identity, a shared purpose, and a shared future. The scars of the past remained, but they were being gradually healed by the balm of mutual understanding and collaboration. The new society wasn't a mere merging of two disparate groups, it was the creation of something entirely new, something stronger, more resilient, and more hopeful than either community could have achieved on its own. The rhythmic clang of metal on metal, the scent of recycled air and fertile soil, these were now the sounds and smells of a community reborn, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the enduring power of human connection, and the transformative potential of hope. Elias and Anya, their hands clasped tightly together, stood at the heart of this rebirth, a living embodiment of the possibility of reconciliation, collaboration, and a shared future forged from the ashes of a fractured past. Their story, far from being merely a tale of personal triumph, was a story of collective resilience, a beacon of hope in a world that had once seemed irrevocably lost. Their story was a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit to rebuild, to adapt, to forgive, and ultimately, to create a future where coexistence, not conflict, would reign supreme. Their story was a story of hope, a story for all humanity. A story that would be told and retold, inspiring generations to come. A story that would remind everyone that even in the deepest darkness, the light of hope can always find a way to shine through. Their story was the story of the future they had helped build, and it was a future worth fighting for. Years drifted by, measured not by the relentless march of surface time, but by the subtle shifts in the underground ecosystem. The rhythmic clang of metal on metal, once a constant soundtrack to their lives, now faded into the background hum of a thriving community. The air, once thick with the scent of recycled air and damp earth, now carried the faint, sweet aroma of ripening fruit from the expanded hydroponic farms. The reclaimed spaces, once echoing with the ghosts of their past, vibrated with the laughter of children playing amidst the carefully tended crops. Anya, her silver hair now streaked with the subtle hues of the underground flora, sat by a window, watching the younger generation tending to the genetically modified potatoes. The window, a repurposed blast door, offered a view not of a ravaged surface, but of a carefully cultivated landscape, a testament to the community's enduring resilience and their innovative spirit. The lines on her face, etched by years of hardship and resilience, held a quiet wisdom that spoke volumes. Her eyes, once filled with the uncertainty of a world in ruins, now reflected the peaceful serenity of a community she had helped build. Elias, his hands gnarled but strong, sat beside her, his gaze fixed on the intricate network of tunnels that formed the arteries of their subterranean world. The once solitary figure, forever marked by loss, was now a respected elder, his wisdom sought by the younger generation. His quiet demeanor radiated a gentle strength, the quiet assurance of a man who had witnessed the worst that humanity could offer and had emerged stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. He was a living testament to the power of human resilience. He had seen the darkness, but had chosen to cultivate the light. Their combined efforts had transformed not only the physical space of their underground haven but the very fabric of their existence. The initial tension between the surface and underground dwellers, born of mistrust and fear, had dissolved into a harmonious blend of cultures. The blending wasn't a forced assimilation, it was a natural evolution, a testament to their shared humanity and a testament to their ability to adapt and forge unity from disparate backgrounds. The once separate languages, each steeped in the unique experiences of their respective worlds, intertwined, evolving into a vibrant dialect that reflected the unique character of their new society. Their stories, both of triumph and tragedy, were woven into the very tapestry of their culture, reminding them of the hardships endured and the strength demonstrated in overcoming adversity. Their traditions, once threatened with extinction, had been meticulously preserved and revitalized, their essence enriched by the cross-pollination of ideas and practices. The community's legacy extended far beyond its physical boundaries. Their experiences served as a powerful symbol of humanity's adaptive capacity, a beacon of hope in a world that had once seemed irrevocably lost. Their success wasn't merely a tale of survival, it was a testament to the enduring power of cooperation, the transformative potential of collective effort, and the extraordinary resilience of the human spirit. Their lives became an embodiment of hope, not just for themselves, but for the wider world, a testament to humanity's ability to rebuild and to create something extraordinary from the ashes of destruction. The lessons learned in the depths of the earth resonated far beyond the confines of their subterranean world. Their methods of sustainable agriculture, their innovative approaches to resource management, and their emphasis on community collaboration were disseminated far and wide, becoming blueprints for sustainable living in a world grappling with ecological challenges. Tales of their resilience reached the surface, initially met with skepticism and disbelief. But as the evidence mounted, the flourishing hydroponic farms, the meticulously documented scientific breakthroughs, the unwavering spirit of the community, the world began to recognize their unique achievement. The underground city became not just a symbol of survival, but a symbol of hope, inspiring people across the globe to embrace sustainable practices, fostering community, and seeking unity over division. The children of this newly forged society, now grown into adulthood, carried the torch of their legacy. They learned not just about their underground heritage, but the lessons of adaptability and resourcefulness, the importance of community, and the unbreakable strength of the human spirit. They were a testament to the enduring power of hope, the possibility of rebuilding, and the possibility of unity amidst chaos. Anya and Elias watched them, their hearts brimming with quiet pride. They had built more than a city beneath the surface. They had built a testament to humanity's potential, a beacon of hope illuminating the path towards a sustainable and harmonious future. Their legacy wasn't merely a tale of survival, it was a blueprint for a better world, a world built on collaboration, resilience, and a profound appreciation for the fragile balance between humanity and nature. Their story was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit possesses an unwavering capacity for hope, adaptation, and the creation of a better future. The rhythmic clang of metal on metal, the scent of recycled air and fertile soil, these sounds and smells, once symbols of their struggle, now resonated with the quiet strength of a community that had not only survived but had thrived. Their story was whispered across generations, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, a reminder that hope, even when buried deep beneath the surface, can always find a way to bloom. It was a story of perseverance, a testament to the power of human connection, and a beacon of hope for a future where collaboration and resilience would guide humanity towards a more sustainable and harmonious world. It was a story worth remembering, a story that would continue to inspire generations to come. A story of enduring legacy, etched not in stone, but in the hearts and minds of those who followed in their footsteps. Their legacy was the hope they ignited, a flame that burned brightly, illuminating the path to a brighter future. A future they had painstakingly created from the depths of the earth and the resilience of the human spirit. Back matter. My deepest gratitude goes to the countless individuals who, directly or indirectly, contributed to the creation of this book. First and foremost, I thank my editor, Matt Green, for his unwavering support, insightful guidance, and tireless dedication. His expertise and sharp eye for detail elevated the manuscript beyond my wildest expectations. A special thank you also goes to Lisa Carter, my literary agent, for believing in this project from its inception and navigating the often treacherous path to publication with unwavering professionalism and optimism. This book owes a significant debt to the researchers, scientists, and urban explorers who have dedicated their lives to understanding the complexities of subterranean environments and the resilience of the human spirit. Their work, though often unseen, provided invaluable inspiration and a rich tapestry of factual detail upon which this fictional narrative is built. Finally, and most importantly, I thank my family and friends for their patience, understanding, and unwavering belief in me throughout the writing process. Their love and support served as a constant source of strength and motivation, allowing me to explore the darkest corners of human nature and emerge with a renewed appreciation for the power of hope and resilience. A map of the underground city, a schematic representation of the key locations and infrastructure within the subterranean community, including the hydroponic farms, living quarters, and the network of tunnels. Glossary of terms. A comprehensive list of terms and jargon used by the inhabitants of the underground city, including their unique dialect and specialized vocabulary. Excerpts from the community archives. Short extracts from the written and oral histories preserved by the underground community, offering further insights into their origins, struggles, and evolution. This glossary defines key terms and phrases specific to the underground community and its unique culture, as depicted in Underground. Grid outsiders, individuals who live outside the conventional societal norms, typically inhabiting the underground city. Surface dwellers, individuals living on the surface world above the underground city. Hydroponic farms, sophisticated agricultural systems used to cultivate crops within the confines of the underground city. Reclaimed spaces, areas of the underground city repurposed from their original functions to serve new needs. The deep network, the extensive system of tunnels and passageways that form the infrastructure of the underground city.